Saturday edition of The Handle here on VSiN and DraftKings Network. Matt Brown, Mike Somich coming to you as always, proudly presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Mike, we have a very busy day in sports. It's kind of like last weekend where we said it snuck up on us a little bit, where you're sitting there on a Saturday and you don't really realize exactly how busy everything is in the sports world. And then you start doing some prep for the show and you start looking for some bets that you want to make, and you realize that maybe today might even be overwhelming when it comes to things that you could do, especially if we start to look forward to next week, in which we got the Masters coming up. Maybe you're starting to look into that as well. So a really, really good Saturday here on The Handle.
It really is. You jump into it and you're like, okay, well, we got the Final Four. What else is going on? And then you realize, well, baseball's in full swing. We've got a bunch of good hockey games. We're not even really going to get to the NBA. There's a ton of NBA action today as well. And then, of course, we got to talk about the ponies. We got 3 Kentucky Derby preps as well, Matt. So really busy day all over the place here. And that's not even mentioning UFC, which I know you want to talk about as well.
Yeah, then we'll talk a little bit about UFC a little bit later in all of this. But, listen, every single day when we walk in here, we have 5 things that we are just dying to bet on. So let's get right to it.
All right, classic. High five. It's time for the Handle's High Five. High five. All right. Number 1.
So as we know, Mike, the Final Four rolls on. Games today, North Carolina State, Purdue, coming to you about 6:10 Eastern. And then we're going to get Alabama and UConn following that. As we sit right now over at DraftKings, it is a 9-point spread in favor of Purdue, 146 on the total. If you think NC State continues this Cinderella run, plus 340 on the money line. And then our evening game, Alabama and UConn, is currently 11.5 in favor of UConn. 160.5 is your total. If you think Alabama pulls the upset here over what looks to be just an absolute truck in UConn, you can get 5-1 over at DraftKings right now, plus 500. Mike, we will certainly get into these much, much more in the next segment where we really get in there and break things down. But all things said, there are some interesting storylines as we head into this. You have the Cinderella story of North Carolina State. You have the Zach Edey thing going on with Purdue. You have Alabama that is so incredibly high variance and known as a football school and now maybe a basketball school. And then, as I just mentioned, UConn being the absolute truck that they have been so far throughout the tournament. So even though we don't have some of the, name brand schools here in the Final Four that we've, a lot of people household names, I do think that this is some pretty good storyline stuff going on here.
It is. We don't have the blue bloods that we've seen in past years. There's no Duke. There's no UNC. So no teams like that. But however, this UConn team you mentioned, they've been phenomenal. Won 10 straight games by 13-plus points. Covered all of them in the last 2 years in the tournament. They're installed as an 11.5, 12-point favorite today. I can't remember, Matt, when you've had these big of favorites in both of the semifinal games. And I don't think it's just an open and shut case in both of them. I am excited to bet both of these games. Like you said, we'll get more into that more in the second segment, but the whistle is going to be a storyline as well. We saw that be a big issue in Purdue, Tennessee. We'll see what happens this early game with NC State and Purdue there.
Yeah, it was short. We came in last week. I had a ticket and a dream, Mike, and then it was gone. No longer, no sweat really for me here in this one as far as any sort of futures tickets or anything like that. So yeah, it's just individual games for me from here on out. I can't remember if you had anything left in the futures market or not.
No, I didn't play anyone to win the tournament just because of UConn. I had a couple Final Four futures headed into last Sunday. Both of those went up in flames, but at least we were able to cover bet them a little bit. That was the one fortunate part, but it's tough to play these futures. We talked about it last week with UConn in the tournament and them being such big favorites. It's hard to monetize tickets. So if you're sitting there and you've got an Alabama to win it all ticket, you got to lay a ton of juice with UConn just to try and cover back your original investment. So it makes it hard to get really excited about the future prices if you liked UConn in the tournament.
Yeah, it was a bet and pray for me last week, and it didn't pan out. So my 175-1, even though my team got to the Elite Eight, won me $0. I got absolutely $0 out of that one. Let's keep it rolling.
Number 2.
It is, listen, yes, there's a golf tournament going on right now. And it is interesting from a betting perspective, mainly because we're seeing about stuff for next week as we head into the Masters. But we do have the Valero that's going on right now. We will also get into some Masters talk as we get going here as well, Mike, because this is the time of year where I think, the casual bettor who maybe hasn't even pushed the golf button on their app is going to push the golf button and going to want to know what's going on next week over in Augusta. And so we'll talk a little bit about the Valero and what maybe this can mean for down the line, but we'll certainly get into some master talk as well today.
Yeah, I'm guilty of being that casual bettor. I bet the 4 majors, and occasionally I'll throw something in when I listen to your podcast, Matt, but not a huge golf bettor here. I have started the Masters research. I got 2 guys I want to bounce off you, see if you think that they are good or bad bets at the current prices. So looking forward to getting in and talking about that.
Hey, I've only got Akshay Bhatia as a 5-stroke leader heading into round 3 today. What can go wrong? This is what we say every single week. So yet another 36-hole leader for me, and I'm sure someone's going to run him down because that's what's happened so far this golf season. I've not been able to get these tickets home.
At least with a 5-stroke lead, if you go into Sunday, if you can hold this lead and keep it up there, you can bet the no, right? There's a way to monetize that ticket. So this is a better situation when there are 7 guys within 2 strokes of the lead, and you got to hope that everything plays out perfectly on a Saturday.
Yeah, I just need him to at least have a 3-stroke lead heading into tomorrow, and then I can make sure to get some money here on this one. But you know what? The way this golf season's gone so far, Mike, I bet you he ends up tied or something like that heading into tomorrow, making this thing incredibly difficult. Let's keep it going.
Number 3.
You mentioned some UFC, and it's kind of like golf, right? Like there is, yes, the Valero's going right now, but we'll talk a little bit about the Valero, but we'll really kind of hone in on the Masters. Well, same deal here whenever Jimmy Smith joins us a little bit later. There is a UFC card today. Probably going to get lost in the shuffle with everything that's going on in the sports world. Not going to lie. This is not going to draw very good numbers, this UFC card, but really we'll talk about UFC 300, which is next week. We'll try to get into that a little bit more with Jimmy and see what he thinks about that. Really, really, really good card. So yes, we will talk UFC Fight Night. We will talk about any bets that maybe you want to make on the card today. Not likely to be one that many casual fans are going to be tuning into, Mike. So we'll kind of focus on UFC 300 with Jimmy.
Yeah, looking forward to it. I'm interested to see if he thinks there's going to be any steam chasing in UFC 300 as well. We've seen some of these prices come out. We'll be interested to see if he believes any of them are going to move, and that'll make him a little more interested in betting. We've talked about UFC quite a bit on the show, and one thing that I've noticed is you see a $1.50 change in some of these lines, and a fighter that you're not expecting to back, all of a sudden you're backing because the steam went the other way. So excited to talk about, what he expects here with a full week out from these fights where we're already seeing some lines available.
Yeah, looking at the card tonight, co-main and main have some pretty substantial favorites. If we look at the co-main, Alex Hernandez is minus 185 over Damon Jackson, and then in the main event you have Brendan Allen, who is a big minus 238 favorite over Chris Curtis in this one. So maybe there is a way to get into the alt markets and make a bet, maybe if you don't want to lay these big numbers like we see right now. So we will get into that. Let's keep going.
Number 4.
You mentioned we're not going to talk a ton about NBA, but we're going to have Zach Graham on the program who will talk a ton about NBA for us today as we head down the home stretch in the NBA season, Mike. And there are bets still to be made. These games all do still count. And actually, interestingly enough, we do have some real drama as we head in towards the end of the season here.
Yeah, we do. I mean, especially out in the West right now. Really, the only thing that's decided is the Clippers are going to be the 4 most likely. Every other position, 1 through 10, still up for grabs out there in the West. And I'm excited to talk about this Bucks team as well, which is lost 3 straight games as 10-plus point favorites to lottery teams. The hiring of Doc Rivers really not gone the way the Bucks had hoped it would have. So you now have the Celtics installed as a massive favorite there in the Eastern Conference. Excited to see if he thinks that this Bucks team, which has a boatload of talent, going to be able to turn around and flip the switch quickly here going into the playoffs.
Yeah, as you mentioned, no drama over in the East. Boston Celtics 61-16, a full 14 games clear of that Bucks team. But you go down into the West, and this will be right up to it. The Timberwolves 53-24, the Nuggets 53-24. The Thunder are 52-25, and that's just at the top. The other part of this is the play-in scenario in which you look right now where the Suns are 46-31. Actually, let's start with the Mavericks, who are 47-30. Suns are 46-31. That is your 5th and 6th spots into the automatic qualifiers. Now you go into the play-in tournament in which the Pelicans are only a game back at 45-32. You only got a couple games back for the Kings and the Lakers sitting there at 44-33. And then you have the Warriors who are holding down that final spot sitting there at 42-35. A few games clear of the Rockets, but, who knows? Weirder things certainly can happen. But I think the main story here, Mike, is when you look at this is if things held as they are right now, we will have playoffs that will either not have Zion Williamson or LeBron or Steph Curry or something, because one of those teams is not going to make it through as we have the play-in tournament.
It's wild to look at that play-in, and the idea that, it could be Devin Booker, it could be Kevin Durant, it could be Luka Doncic, it could be Kyrie Irving that ends up in that play-in tournament as well. You look at the Pelicans, who've been playing some very good basketball. It's not a team anyone really wants to face. Even look at the Kings, who were competing for the 1 seed in the West to the last couple weeks of the season last year, a team with a ton of talent. They need Malik Monk back right now. But the fact that you'd have LeBron versus Steph just to make the game, to make the playoffs at this point, wild to think about. We'll see if either the Lakers or the Warriors are able to close a little bit of ground so that they're both able to get in. But you're going to miss some stars in the NBA playoff in the West because of how good that conference is and because of how well OKC and Minnesota have played toward the top.
Let's wrap it up.
Number 5.
As you mentioned at the top here, Mike, not one, not two, but 3 big races in your world that we will get into today. But these are all 3 races in the horse racing world. If you're familiar, these are all going to ring a bell for you. And if not, hey, Mike's going to bring it to you.
Yeah, we are. We got the Wood from Aqueduct. We got the Santa Anita Derby from Santa Anita and the Bluegrass from Keeneland. Absolutely love the Keeneland meet. It's one of the boutique meets here. It's a smaller track, absolutely beautiful, middle of Kentucky, sitting in Lexington. Can't wait to talk about these 3 races. Unfortunately, Encino scratched out of the Bluegrass. That was a bummer this morning, but still a ton to talk about.
When we come back, as we said, we're going to really get into the weeds with these 2 Final Four games. What bets are in our account? What angles are we looking at? And honestly, what do we think we might see a little bit further down the line? That's also a long tease here because they already have lines out for potential championship games as well. It's a handle here on a Saturday.
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Summage on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Hey, our morning show here on the network, Follow the Money's hitting the road. You get a special edition from the DraftKings Sportsbook down at TPC Scottsdale. They're going to be talking all things Final Four, and it is happening right after this very program, so stick around. You can catch them getting some expert analysis, the latest insights, also some exclusive interviews from down there talking the Final Four. So special edition of Follow the Money today, live from DraftKings Sportsbook down at TPC Scottsdale, immediately following this very program, The Handle, which is The Handle here on DraftKings Network and VSiN. Matt Brown, Mike Summage coming to you here on a Saturday. And Mike, you picked a good weekend not to come in because for whatever reason, we can't just decide to stay warm here in Las Vegas. And so yesterday it got to 40 degrees here. Ooh. It was 74 the day prior. My sinuses loved it, as you could tell. I'm just loving this. I'm loving yesterday. My throat's starting to get scratchy. I'm like, what's going on? Like, oh, it's 40 degrees and windy, and there's snow falling in certain parts of the area around here. So good on you, man. You picked a good one.
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, it's not exactly warm here in Santa Barbara. And right now, the Petri dish that is a kindergarten class for my daughter is just out of control. There were 6 kids out sick on Thursday. I feel lucky to be here and not have these sinus issues that you may be struggling through at this point, because when you have a kid and the whole class gets sick, it's just inevitable that you and your wife get sick as well. I've dodged it. My wife is not. So we'll see how long I can hold off here.
Oh, boy. Yeah, tomorrow you're going to come in just looking like absolute hell. But it's okay. It's all right. Everything's good. As we said, we have 2 games that we are going to break down top to bottom here. North Carolina State and Purdue is our first. That's going to be about 6:10 Eastern for you. 9-point favorites are Purdue. 146 is your total. And as we said, if you think North Carolina State continues a Cinderella run, plus 340 over there on the money line. And Mike, I'm going to let you go ahead and start with your thoughts here in the breakdown, because you are going to go ahead and take some points here on the dog.
I am. I'm going to take the 9 here with North Carolina State. Mm-hmm. I took a little bit 9.5 when it was available as well. I still like North Carolina State here sitting at the 9 number. We just need to put some respect on North Carolina State's name at this point. If you look what they did to get in the tournament, beating Duke, beating Virginia, beating UNC in the ACC tournament to be able to even make the dance, and then they come in, they knock off Texas Tech, they took out Marquette, they're able to beat Duke again. At what point do we have to say this isn't the NC State team that's been power rated this way the entire season? You have to readjust your numbers for just the last couple weeks. And if you readjust for the last few weeks in the way NC State's been playing, this should be a 4 or 5 point spread. We shouldn't be sitting at 9. Now, I understand if you look at the full season slate, 9 makes sense. But I can't agree with the current number out there just with how well NC State has been playing. And at this point, fatigue's not an issue. They got past that first weekend. That's when you could have really seen it. They struggled a little bit against Oakland, but were able to get out of that game. That was a big key for me. The big question mark, Matt, and we talked about this in the Purdue-Tennessee game, how will this game be officiated? At one point, Edey had drawn 10 fouls in the second half against Tennessee and yet to be called for 1. That was a huge storyline. If you were on social media, that was what everyone was talking about. They were talking about it on the game, which rarely happens as well. I think it's going to be really interesting to see how DJ Burns is officiated here, taking on Edey, because Burns is a big man. It will be difficult for Edey to move him to get into the spots that he wants to be in. So it's going to be a situation where NC State may not have to double and triple Edey to be able to stop him, which means that you're not going to get the easier kick-out threes, the wide-open looks after 2 passes, because there's 3 guys down on Edey. That's going to be one of the big keys to the game here, is how this will be officiated. And I have a feeling, Matt, they're going to swallow the whistle a little bit here. Because of the big storyline that we saw in that Purdue-Tennessee game, you've got to think the referees heard about it. You've got to think there's at least been discussions about trying to make sure this is a fairly called game. And additionally, this is a product. They don't want just a bunch of whistles on Edey. They want them to bang inside. All of that, to me, leads toward NC State plus the 9 points here. So I'm happy to back the dog in this spot.
Yeah, I'm actually not convinced Burns is going to be on Edey. I think because of the foul trouble situation and because of how important Burns is to this team, I don't know how often he's actually going to be on Edey. I think they might put Diarra on him. They have another guy in Middlebrooks that might be able to bang with him a little bit. I think maybe they go that approach. And plus, if we kind of look at it, DJ Burns has definitely turned into the darling of March Madness. If you didn't know who DJ Burns was before, people do now if they pay attention to sports. But listen, he is a defensive liability, right? And so I think there's a couple different reasons to not have him on Edey. And one, not to get him in foul trouble. And two, he's not all that great at defense anyway. So I'm curious about what they do with all of that. And then, Mike, if we look at this total, one of the things that we know about Purdue, right, is they play pretty passive defense. They kind of just, put Edey down low, have all of get every single defensive rebound. They don't allow you to get offensive rebounds. They give you kind of those mid-range jumpers and whatnot. And so I sit here and I look at this total, which is not incredibly high at 146. And we know that Purdue doesn't push the pace all that much, but what if we get some regression from their three-point shooting, which has been pretty abysmal so far in the tournament, and we actually get NC State hitting some of these kind of mid-range jumpers and whatnot? Couldn't this total fly over under that scenario if we get a little bit better three-point percentage from Purdue and we get these mid-range jumpers kind of dropping for NC State early? Maybe Purdue has to change their defensive strategy in the second half or something, but maybe we get a bulk of the way there in the first half from a total perspective.
It's definitely possible that the total flies over. It's tough for me to back these type of totals over when the 2 key scorers are going to be big men for both teams. I mean, Burns and Edey are going to be the guys who you're going to see with a lot of the ball. DJ Horn, obviously, on NC State, who leads the team in points, will try and fill it up as well. But to me, that the one issue with taking the over here is it is 2 teams that want to play inside out versus outside in, which generally means you're not going to see as many points in these type of games. You also have the new shooting lines, the bigger arenas. Those are issues to me. And you have the pressure. Look, this is the biggest game that anyone on this court is going to play in their career up to this point. So I lean toward the under a little bit here, but I don't disagree with the argument where if Purdue shoots it a little better and plays the same style of defense they have been, NC State could get theirs as well. But because of the styles of both of these teams and just the pressure part of this, I kind of lean toward the under a little bit here.
Yeah, Purdue 2 of 15 from 3 against Tennessee in that one. Alabama and UConn, 11.5 is your current spread in favor of UConn. 160.5 is your total. If you sit here and you look, you mentioned this in the opening segment there, Mike. UConn covered every game so far. They've won every game by double digits. They're trying to become the first back-to-back champion in 17 years. If you're looking for a positive from the Alabama standpoint, it does look like Wrightsell, who was dealing with a concussion, is probably going to be back in there for them. He's a pretty good three-point shooter. He plays good defense for them, so there's at least a little bit of a leg a little bit of a reason to like Alabama if you are kind of that mindset that he could do something for them. So you are looking here, though, at a total as opposed to a side in this one.
Yeah, I am. Look, when you talk about the way Alabama is going to be able to beat UConn, it's all about their three-point shot. They're going to take 40, 50 three-pointers in this game and try and just win the variance game by getting hot from long distance. To me, like, I don't love the idea of trying to do that in a Final Four game. It's a situation where you don't see teams shoot nearly as well in the Final Four generally. To me, this feels like a situation where I don't think Alabama is able to shoot the three ball that well. And then you look at UConn, which everyone talks about how efficient they are on the offensive side, and they are. They're wildly efficient offensively. However, they're 303rd in the NCAA in possessions per game. I don't think UConn's going to play very fast here. They're going to keep it slow. They have a very good transition defense. They're going to try and slow down Alabama, who's going to try and run at every point. I think UConn controls the style of this game, and I don't love the idea of trying to take 40 or 50 threes from Alabama either. If they shoot 25%, I don't see how we get over 160.5 here. I think this total is about 5 points too high for the UConn pace of play that we're going to see. So took the under 160.5 here in the UConn-Alabama game.
Yeah, Alabama gives up the 15th most post-up points per game. You're probably going to get a good game out of Donovan Clingan here because he's going to be able to do what he does down low against this team that just isn't very good at defending stuff down low. And Mike, it really is. I mean, this seems like the most cut and dry kind of handicap that there possibly is. I lean towards taking the points with Alabama, but the thing is because of that high variance, it's almost as if you would take an alt spread with Alabama as opposed to the 11.5 or the alt spread with UConn, right? Because it's like if the threes are falling, Bama probably only loses by 5, 6, 7-ish points or something like that. If the threes are not falling, this thing could be another one of these like 20-point blowouts, right? So it's almost like you look at alt lines on both sides depending on which way you lean as to how the outcome is from the 3-point line.
Yeah, if the threes aren't going down, UConn has a chance to win this by 20 points, like you said. And so you can look at, I think it's interesting if you can find like largest lead in the game over 17.5, those type of numbers. I think that's a positive for UConn as well. The other prop bet I like really quite a bit here, Matt, if we believe they're going to get up 40 to 53s, Mark Sears' total three-pointers made is sitting at 2.5. You got to think that's going over. He went 7 for 14 in the game against Clemson, took 14 threes, and yet his total made threes for this prop is 2.5. So I like the Sears over 2.5 three-pointers made as well.
Yeah, I think I might play an alt line in this one way or the other, because it seems like with the variance that comes into this, it's either going to be way closer or way worse than this spread is right now. When we come back, let's take a look at that Valero Texas Open and also start to look at the Masters over at Augusta.
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Summage on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Call me biased, but I think we have at least an above-average golf podcast here on the network called Long Shots, and we're going to be doing a very special Masters edition of Long Shots this Tuesday, 11 p.m. Eastern. Not live. It's recorded. You're going to tune in at 11 p.m. Eastern. You're going to listen to me, Wes Reynolds, Kelly Bidlin. We're going to break down the field. We're going to give you the best bets. We're going to uncover some of these long shots maybe. Like, 50-1 Steven Yeager ticket we cashed last week in Houston. Got some dark horses, inside scoop on some players and things like that. Listen, we're going to talk all of our models, what went into the models, what the models spit out, what it's telling us, and why the bets we made are getting made again. Tuesday, 11 p.m. Eastern. You can also get a free Masters betting primer over at VSiN.com/Masters as well. Matt Brown, Mike Summage, coming to you here on The Handle on a Saturday. You would say at least above average, that Long Shots podcast, right? At least above average.
Yeah. It's about par.
Deserving of, I see what you did there. Listen, deserving of at least a 4-star review over in your app store of choice. And if you wanted to hit 5, boy, I would be tickled pink.
Yeah, I think I gave it a 4-star. I wanted to, I didn't want to inflate the ego too much with the 5-star review. So I threw a 4-star on it, but I do appreciate you guys. To be fair, you've been live every single tournament with somebody at least for the final round. Which is all you want. I want golf sweats. Yeah. That's what I want, man.
We've been live every single week. We're live again this week with Batia. We'll see what happens with all of that. Let's check in over at the Valero Texas Open. As we mentioned, Akshay Bhatia is your odds-on favorite, and we are talking, I mean, listen, plus 130 here, minus 400 to top 5, and minus 1,000 to top 10 this thing, and that is because he is heading in with quite the lead. And so, is there a bet to be made? I mean, Mike, look, it's tough for me, right? Because Akshay Bhatia is still a young player. He is a guy. He has won on tour, by the way. He won on an alt event on the PGA Tour whenever there was another event that was going on, which is maybe why you don't remember it. It was an alt event on the tour. So he carries this 5-stroke lead in there. If we're talking about this late, if we're talking about this on Monday, if Akshay Bhatia were to collapse, would it completely surprise me? It wouldn't. He does have pedigreed guys, Brendan Todd, Russell Henley, Denny McCarthy, Rory McIlroy. He does have pedigreed guys trying to chase him down, right? He does have dudes that can go in and maybe scare him a little bit. But, man, it's a feat to lose a 5-stroke lead on a course that isn't playing very easy, right? So it's as long as he doesn't go out there and wet the bed, I think that he can get this one done. So I don't know. I mean, if you wanted to tell me you wanted to play a ticket along, if you wanted to put in a 550 on Rory, I guess fine. If you wanted to do Russell Henley, fine. But it's not for me.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine he blows this lead without blowing up. Yesterday, the best score across the course was a 67. It's tough to come back from 5 strokes down when the best score on the course was a 67. You essentially have to shoot that twice in a row and hope that he backs up a little bit to make any type of ground up here. His 63 on Thursday was what really set him apart from this field. Shot a 70 yesterday, so nothing too spectacular, but back-to-back 70s probably get it done here. So you would need to see him go 2, 3, 4 over in one of these rounds to really have anyone else get a chance. Now, Matt, I'm really interested in how the form of players going into the Masters. We've got 19 players from the Masters that are competing in this event. Is there anyone, I realize that they may not win the tournament. Is there anyone that's caught your eye that's played well this week that you project to play well next week as well at Augusta?
Yeah, I mean, so that's kind of the deal with the Valero for me anyway. I did put in some bets, and obviously hopefully we get this one home, but it was more kind of watching some of these dudes who haven't really been in form. And, there's only 3 water holes. So kind of going back to your point of like having to blow up, right? There's only water danger on 3 holes in this one too. So getting guys like spraying it all over the place into the water, like that wasn't in the case, that really wasn't in the cards. And so I'm trying to look at guys that everyone's going to be asking me about, namely Rory McIlroy, who does sit in solo 5th right now at 5 under with back-to-back rounds of 69 and 70. Rory's form has just not been very good. And it's one of those things, he hadn't been able to put 4 rounds together really, Mike. And so you take a look at Rory and you start to say like, okay, how seriously is he going to take this Valero tournament? Is he just using this to kind of work on something, right? Because that's the other thing about these tournaments right before the Masters, which are always tricky and difficult in handicapping, is some guys will flat out tell you like, man, my wedge game has been absolute garbage. I got to dial this in a competitive atmosphere before I head over to the Masters. Or, man, I just don't know what's been going on with the driver. I've been blocking it right. I've got to be able to figure out how to square this head up, et cetera, et cetera. So they go in with a really specific reason that they're playing this tournament. And then other ones, I think, just want to put 4 rounds together. And I think that's what Rory actually did in this one. I think he just wants to put 4 good rounds together because he hasn't really done it so far this season.
Well, and golf is such a confidence game, right? You never want to be blocking it right and have that mentally in your head when you're standing on the first tee of the Masters. You want to be able to believe that you can put 4 rounds together, especially on a tough course like Augusta. So having that confidence is a massive part of this moving into it. And one of the things that I always look when I'm playing the Masters, who has played well at Augusta? How big does the actual ability of someone who's or the past performance that we've seen from these golfers specifically at Augusta, how much does that go into your handicap for the Masters?
Yeah, it's the stickiest course that there is. I mean, it's the only, if we're looking at the big tournaments out there, right? I mean, it's the one that's played at the same course every single year. It's a roto for all the other ones. And so you have these guys that have played this thing multiple times and understand how to play the course. They know where to miss. Like, that's one of the things Phil Mickelson said about this tournament, as you guys may or may not remember from last year. If you watched the tournament, Phil Mickelson had a little bit of a run last year, and he was not playing well at all. And the thing about Phil Mickelson was, he's like, yeah, I'm not playing all that great. But he's like, I know where to miss here because he had played it so many times. He knows the course. And so even though he was missing a lot, when he's missing a lot at all these courses that he only, kind of flies in and flies out of all the time, he doesn't really know what's going on with all of that. But he knew where to miss. He knew what his miss was currently in his game, and then he was just playing that to this course. And I think that's something that is very, very, very important as you're doing your handicap here. I mean, listen, we all know Rory hasn't captured this one. This is the reason why it's going to be such a big storyline with Rory McIlroy. The problem for me with Rory leading into this thing is just the fact that his approach game has been garbage. And like at Augusta, you have to have every club in your bag. You have to be able to do everything. This isn't one of those like, oh, now it's bomb and gouge, or it's, oh no, you just fairway find and everything's going to be perfectly fine. Like, you got to have every single club in the bag working for you. And he's 119th on the season in strokes gained approach. He's 134th in strokes gained around the green. And you know, it's just 133rd in scrambling. So he's not doing good when he is kind of spraying it. So I don't know. I'm very interested to see how this next 2 days goes for him over at the Valero. But there are a couple of different guys, Mike. I mean, Cantlay, Hovland, that are heading into this one kind of struggling, kind of limping in. And the odds to me just aren't indicative of their current state of play.
Let's talk about a couple of the guys. So I did my preliminary research here and came up with two names that I like at a little bit of a price. The first one, Brooks Koepka, 18-1 right now. And the main reason here is how well he has done at the Masters over the last 5 years. You take out the 2 years where he was injured. You look at the other three finishes, tied for second, tied for seventh, tied for second. Someone who I believe has the ability to shoot well here at Augusta, clearly likes the course, won a major last year, sitting on the board at 18-1. Am I crazy to like little Brooks Koepka here?
So, in my opinion, there are 3 live guys that I am taking seriously for the tournament. Rahm being one, Joaquin Niemann being the other, and then Brooks Koepka being the other one after that. And honestly, just coming through right now, Cam Smith just withdrew from Live Miami due to illness. We'll see what that does carrying over into the Masters. So he just withdrew from Live. Those 3 guys, mainly because of, one, Rahm isn't that far removed from being on the PGA Tour, so I don't expect motivational things like that to really affect him. Niemann, because of what we've just seen from a result standpoint with him over on Live. If you haven't, again, followed Live, which I don't see any reason why you would have, and I get it if you haven't, but like Joaquin Niemann has actually been the hottest player over on Live. If you look, this dude, he's won twice over on Live. He won on the Euro Tour as well, and he has a 3rd and a 5th and a couple of T4s on Live as well. So I mean, like, his results just speak for themselves. And then Brooks Koepka, just because I have to believe what he said, and just what I've seen from past history with him, was he's like, I kind of just only get up for these big tournaments. He's like, I mean, he literally says he goes and plays golf. This was a quote from he did a little interview with like Golf Digest this past week. He's like, if I go play golf with my brother and my dad at my home course that I know like the back of my hand, he's like, I struggle to shoot par because I just can't, there's no juice to it. And so like, if I'm just playing with my dad and my brother, it's hard for me to even shoot par whenever I'm doing that at my home course. And he's like, but for whatever reason, I go to these bigger tournaments and I just care more. Now, is that a good attitude? We can debate that. But the fact is he's shown it time and time and time again. So I don't hate the Koepka bet at all. If you were looking at other Live guys, like I said, Rahm, Niemann, those are really the only 2 that I'm taking seriously. I know you have another Live guy on your card. I wouldn't have gone that one, but hey, listen, he's pedigreed.
What's wrong with little DJ at 35-1? This is the guy that everyone talked about. He should be the favorite a couple years ago. He was sitting at 8-1 in some of the markets. Now we're getting 35-1 on Dustin Johnson.
Have you seen his house?
And has
have you seen his wife? Have you seen what he likes to do? He likes to fish.
Of course I've seen his wife. I'm the one who likes hockey.
He likes to fish. He likes to go out and just sit around and that's all DJ's doing these days, man. He
likes to win the Masters.
He's fishing and loving life. And enjoying his wife and stuff like that. We're going to take a look at the MLB slate when we come back here on The Handle.
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Summage on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Hey, we are going to give you an offer right now over at DraftKings Sportsbook that you cannot turn down. If you are a new customer, go to the App Store and download DraftKings Sportsbook. And when you do, use the promo code VSiN, V-S-I-N, and you're going to be able to turn $5 into $150 instantly in bonus bets with any college basketball bet. Again, go to the App Store, download DraftKings Sportsbook, use the promo code VSiN, V-S-I-N, bet $5 on any college basketball bet and get $150 instantly in bonus bets in your account. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Matt and Mike here on the handle on Saturday, an eventful Saturday. We haven't even gotten all the horse racing, well, the hockey, all the other stuff. Guess what, though? We are going to get to a sport that we actually have some bets in today, Major League Baseball. Mm-hmm. But let's give a quick little rundown. We're where we are right now in the season, Mike. I bet a lot of people hadn't paid a ton of attention because I get it. It's a lot going on, man. We're coming down the home stretch in hockey and basketball. You've got March Madness going on, all these different things. If you're a big NFL guy, the draft is coming up. I get it. I totally understand if you haven't paid attention so far. So kind of like what we look at right now, the AL East is rocking and rolling. You look here, the Yankees 6-2, the Red Sox 6-2, the Orioles 5-2, the Jays are 4-4. The Rays are 3-5, but we expect the Rays to probably sit somewhere where they normally do. A little bit above 500, if not a little bit better, and probably overachieve when you look at that. But you have 4 good teams over there in the AL East right now, and a little bit of surprise on the Red Sox side of things. But hey, this is what baseball does.
It is what baseball does. Producer Steph having herself a good first couple weeks here of the baseball season with the Red Sox staying in contention. Look, I'm impressed with the Orioles. It was a team I was looking forward to watching come into this season. I thought they played very well. Their AAA team is absolutely bombing the baseball right now. I would take the Orioles AAA team over the A's and possibly the Rockies as well right now.
They scored 26 runs the other night.
Just
the AAA team.
Just,
they scored 26
10
runs.
10 RBIs from their cleanup hitter. Holiday went, I think it was 6 for 7 in that game. Just wild what they're able to do on the offensive side. So there are reinforcements coming for Baltimore as well offensively if they can find a spot for them. It's a very good problem Baltimore currently has. They need to get their pitching together a little bit better, but this is a really strong AL East. And you look top to bottom. I mean, you mentioned the Rays. They're going to get better. They have a couple pitchers right now on the IL. They'll get those guys back. And the Blue Jays, Bichette and Guerrero haven't even started hitting the ball yet, and they're sitting there at 4-4 as well. So top to bottom, very competitive division. I'll still take the Orioles here, plus 225 if I was going to place any division bet.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I like the Orioles as well. They're as it looks right now, they have kind of ace 1A, 1B in Burns and in Grayson Rodriguez. So good stuff going on there. Over the AL Central, Tigers are 6-1. The Guardians are 6-2. They lead the way there in that division. White Sox not very good at all. Royals are 500, as are the Twins. Over in the West, Mike, we got the Rangers at 5-2. The Angels, surprisingly, there at 4-3. The Mariners at 3-5. But I think the big story here, not that the Rangers are in first, but the fact that the Astros are sitting at 2-6 on the young season.
Yeah, disappointing starts here from the Mariners and the Astros, both of them not getting off out of the gates very quickly here. I trust the Astros will get it together to go. The pedigree is there. The bats are there. They've got the pitching. This, to me, is just one of those teams that's having a little bit of an early season slump. They're still plus 140 to win the divisions, tied with the Rangers for the favorites right now. If you want to get a little Astros in, to me, you could have some fun with some of these parlays, Matt. If you wanted to parlay the Astros, you wanted to parlay the O's. I think the Royals have actually shown quite a bit in the Central as well. I don't expect the Tigers to keep this up. They're 6-1. I don't expect the Guardians to keep this up. They're 6-2, especially with Bieber now going projected to have Tommy John surgery. That news came out today as well. And you mentioned Cole Reagans as possibly a Cy Young AL winner before the season. He has looked phenomenal for this Royals team, which couldn't hit the ball a lick for the first couple of games. They've started to hit the baseball, and their starters have pitched very well this season.
Yeah, like him not taking it. I have Burns and Reagans in the account. I only have 2, and they're first and third in the odds right now. National League East, Atlanta Braves 4-2. They lead the way. Every other team under 500 in that division. But the big news here, and this is something that might come out as you and I are on air. We are awaiting MRI results on Spencer Strider, which not only could change the outlook of the Braves in general, but definitely the Cy Young race as well. So something to keep an eye on. Again, anything that comes through as we are on air, Mike, we will certainly update people there. The Central Brewers are 5-1. Pirates are 6-2. Cubs are 5-2, and the Reds are 4-3. The Cardinals are 4-4. No team under 500 there in the NL Central.
Yeah, if you had the NL Central as your division of death on your bingo card, congratulations, you were the only one. This is one of those divisions that we didn't expect very much from. And this Pirates team, they've come out, they've been very patient at the plate, taken a bunch of walks, been able to consistently hit the baseball. And here we are sitting at 5-1. I don't think this is going to keep going. I think at some point you're going to see some regression here from sitting here at 6-2. I'm sorry, but I think you're going to see some regression here from the Pirates. I think the Reds are a little interesting. I think the Cubs are a little bit interesting. We'll see if either of those two teams can get it going. But the Reds here plus 425. I don't think it's a terrible price. I like the Cubs is the favorite right now in the division at plus 195. Feels a little short to me, Matt.
And then the NL West, the most boring division in baseball. The Dodgers really could. every third game just put their AAA team out there and maybe win about half of those, and then they're going to coast to this one. So not much commentary here for this one.
Well, a question for you. The Spencer Strider news, the Atlanta right now plus 210 to win the NL. The Dodgers sitting at plus 180. If he does need Tommy Johns, how much do you think that number moves?
I mean, it should move at least 10 cents, I would think, because, that was almost a guaranteed win for the Braves, right? And so especially when you come playoff time, when you shorten these rotations and you're only going to get the team's best 3 or 4 guys, when one of those guys,
loss.
It's a huge, huge, huge loss. So maybe not over the course of the regular season because the Braves are so good hitting wise that they're still going to make the playoffs, obviously, and all that, but when it comes to playoff time, though, that's where it really comes down to it, because you shrink these rotations down and you don't have that kind of automatic win in there, which you did before. It makes that team much more vulnerable.
It really does. And then that, to me, if you're going to look to play anything off this Strider news, to me, you look to play the Dodgers versus you looking to play the AL East or NL East, the division title there, because I believe the Dodgers get huge upgraded in a big way here if you lose Strider, because in that playoff series, all of a sudden it's a 2 versus 1, it's a 3 versus 2, and you go down the list with 2 offenses that can absolutely rake. That makes a massive difference come this playoff time.
You and I ended up on the same game, not the same bet, but the same game here. This one coming to you in about an hour and let's call it 20 minutes. Guardians and Twins. There is a first pitch actually coming to you in about 20 minutes. If you wanted to play the A's and Tigers, it is Tigers minus 148, A's plus 124. The total, and that's 8.5. Kenta Maeda is going to go for the Tigers. Paul Blackburn going for the A's. But the next game that you will see is the Guardians and Carlos Carrasco versus the Twins and Joe Ryan. The Twins and Joe Ryan minus 175 favorites in this one, plus 145 for the Guardians, and total sitting at 8 right now. We both have a couple of unders, Mike, but of different variety.
Yeah, I think we got out in front of this one, Matt. It was 8.5. It was as high as 9 at one point earlier. We've seen this move all the way down to 8 now. I took the first 5 under here in the Twins and Guardians. When I'm playing unders, I just play first 5 unders. I don't like messing around with the game. I don't want to deal with the extra innings rules. I don't want to deal with the bullpens. I'm generally playing the under because I'm handicapping the starters versus the offenses, and I feel like Carrasco and Ryan both have advantages here. So I took under first 5, 4.5. Hopefully we can get a low-scoring game here early on.
Yeah, I took the full game under 8.5. Both Carrasco and Ryan are both ground ball pitchers as it is anyway. But that being said, when they do get the ball in the air, the wind is blowing in at 16 miles an hour in this game right now. And so over the course of this, it looks like it's going to vary somewhere between 15 and 18 miles an hour with the wind blowing in. So they keep the ball on the ground as it is pretty good. But then also you're looking at a team that even when they do, you're looking at 2 pitchers that even when they do let the guys hit it in the air, it's going to get blown in anyway. And so I really do like that one. Cleveland actually 29th in the league early on in hard contact as it is. And then the Twins are 27th in runs scored. So a lot of things pointing to the under in this one. As you mentioned, Mike, I bet this last night. I'm sure you bet it last night. People woke up this morning. They kind of started seeing the same things we did. So we've seen this thing on the move. I'd still play under 8. It just increases the push equity, obviously, because not a huge difference in my 8.5 and the 8 other than the fact that the push goes up. But I would still look at the under on the full game if that's what you're looking for.
Yeah, I would go as low as 3.5 if you can get plus money on the first 5. That to me is all about the price. I want about 25 cents, 30 cents per half run there that you're paying in the first 5. So if the price is right, I don't hate the idea of going under 3.5 with plus money, because the wind blowing in is a huge factor here. Like you said, 2 ground ball pitchers, but if you do have some of those seeing eye singles, you get runners on, you don't have to worry about the multi-run home runs, which is a big part of those first 5 unders.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So something I really do like in that one. That being said, we have some other baseball plays that we're going to do. So we'll hold those over to the beginning of the next 7 because I don't want to cut those short. Looking at something in the Dodgers and Cubs game, looking at something also in the Orioles and Pirates game when we get going there. So definitely want to take a look at those. But as we mentioned, in baseball world, really the thing that we're looking at today is what's going to come back with the Spencer Strider MRI stuff. And it's never good when the pitcher himself says it's an elbow discomfort. Mike, we rarely get good news when it comes from the elbow discomfort thing. So hopefully it's not avoidable from a surgery standpoint, but you got to think at the very least he's going to miss some time.
Yeah, you got to almost assume worst case scenario. When the pitcher comes out and says it's elbow discomfort and it's an MRI, 9 times out of 10, it ends in surgery. So it's one of those things you got to keep an eye on. Hopefully it's not. I'd love Strider to be in for this year for the Braves. Love to see him in the playoffs, but you fear the worst here.
You and me both. We'll look at some hypothetical championship game lines as well as Dodgers Cubs as well. Come on back here on The Handle.
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Summage on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Hour number 2 of The Handle here on VSiN and DraftKings Network. Matt Brown, Mike Summage coming to you as always, probably brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. Want to stick with Major League Baseball because we do have a couple of games here that are on that early-ish side of things. Make sure people can get in before maybe those lines get on the move, and then we'll talk some more college basketball. But, Mike, Dodgers and the Cubs, this is 4:05 Eastern, 1:05 Pacific. The Dodgers are sending Yoshinobu Yamamoto to the hill. He is a minus 155 favorite over the Cubs, and Jordan Wicks, plus 130 if you like the Cubs at home as underdogs. 8 is your total here in this one. I played another under. This was also 8.5 a little bit earlier. Played an under here on this as well. This is 2 fresh starters, and what I mean by that is guys that people just don't have a lot of looks at. We got Yamamoto coming over, and then Wicks being a youngster. You look at this, neither one of these, no starter on either one of these teams has ever faced these opposing pitchers. We did see Yamamoto get roughed up in his first start of the year, but then he got it back in order on his second start of the year. Wicks is actually a 2021 first rounder, so this is a guy that progressed through the minor leagues pretty quickly. He struck out 6 in 4 innings in his first start of the year. That was a road game versus the Rangers in this. If you look at these two teams, they're actually hitting well, and so you would say, well, Matt, why are you going to take an under in this game? You got the Dodgers, who are actually second in weighted on base, and you have the Cubs, who are actually fifth in weighted on base. But it's a small sample size, and also some of the opponent stuff plays into that as well, Mike. If we take a look, for me, it's going to be cold. It's still like 44, 45 degrees there in Chicago. We do at least have a wind that is blowing straight in from center field. Now, it's not as pronounced as we had in the game we were talking about earlier, but we are seeing about 8 to 10 mile an hour winds blowing in from center field in Chicago. And so I like what I saw in Yamamoto. I mean, he's super hyped prospect, a guy that could end up in kind of the Cy Young talks as we, look in the next couple of years. And I think Wicks, super high prospect, as I mentioned, first round pick over in 2021. I like his stuff as well. If you look at kind of how they grade out all this stuff, I mean, this guy's maxed out on fastball, changeup, all the different things like that. And so for me, I think we're just getting a little bit of an inflated total considering not only these starting pitchers, but this the ballpark factor that's playing in this a little bit. That being said, can the Dodgers go score 10 on their own because of that lineup? Yes, they obviously always can, but I'll go ahead and take what I consider to be a little bit of perceived value given what we've got. And so I took the under in this thing.
Yeah, it's always scary when you take the Dodgers to the under, just because of how good that lineup is, specifically that 1, 2, 3, 4. But the wind blowing in at Wrigley is a big deal. That ballpark with the wind blowing in, it's tough to put runs up. You mentioned Wicks, former first-round pick. He's got absolutely electric stuff. And then Yamamoto, a pitcher that I'm excited to watch today. I mean, this is going to be the game that's going to get a second screen for me, just because I want to watch both these pitchers go and twirl and see what they've got. I haven't been able to see Yamamoto pitch yet, so excited for that experience. And I like Wicks had 6 Ks against Texas. The key for him is going to be how deep in this game can he go. He has to kind of keep that pitch count down. He also had 3 walks in that spot, so he needs to improve his control a little bit against this Dodgers lineup. But should be a fun pitching matchup today in Chicago.
Let's get another one that is 4:05 Eastern that is on your card. We have the Orioles and the Pirates. It's Tyler Wells for the Orioles and Bailey Falter for the Pirates. Wells and the Orioles minus 142 road favorites. If you want the Pirates at home as underdogs, plus 120. 8.5 is our total in this one. What are you looking at here?
I'm going to the first 5 here. And you look at Tyler Wells and what he did in his first start. He gave up 4 runs, or there were 4 runs against him. 3 of them were earned. Pretty unlucky outing when you look at it. He only gave up 4 hits in that game as well. There was a seeing eye single that turned into a 2-run homer in the first inning. The second inning had an error that cost them, and an infield single, another seeing eye single. So it was really not all that hard hit baseballs against him. And then he settled down, and he was perfect through the rest of the game that he pitched. This is a spot where I think Wells gets a little regression from the luck, which is a positive thing for him. And I'm looking to fade the Pirates right now. They're sitting there at 6-2. I don't think this lineup is as good as it is. We got a positive pitching matchup taking on Bailey Falter here. And this O's lineup is one I want to back. Right now, you can lay the half run in the Orioles first 5, get plus 100. So that's the route I took in this spot, Matt.
Yeah, looking here, just got confirmed. It looks like it's all your typical starters there for Baltimore, so nobody taking a rest day here early on in the season. Over on the Pittsburgh side of things, I mean, I think it's an interesting team just in general, but as you mentioned, I think they are a little bit I think they're a little bit overperforming as it is right now. There's no doubt O'Neal Cruz is an absolute stud, and he's a star, and they're getting some stuff out of Sawinski and whatnot, but I do think that this starts to even out a little bit over the course of time, and so maybe that starts today here with this Orioles squad that, as you mentioned, just completely loaded, not only in the majors, but also over on the minors side of things. I mean, they've got a guy sitting on the bench right now in Cowser that is literally a top 60 prospect in all of baseball. They can't get him on the field. They're going to have to send him down to AAA probably because he can't get any playing time with the way that this lineup is right now. There's going to be some sort of major trades go on with Baltimore as the trade deadline gets close, because they have an embarrassment of riches when it comes to prospect standpoint. And if they're going to be in the thick of things, Mike, like you and I both think that they are, they're probably going to acquire some very big name player at the trade deadline for some of these prospects that are essentially getting wasted away. So you might as well get something for them as opposed to just leaving them down in AA and AAA because you can't find a position for them up in the majors.
It's going to be interesting what they decide to do. Do you move on from some players on your major league roster to bring those prospects up and basically reset the cost cycle here, so you keep a less expensive team, but you're risking it a little bit because you don't have the proven major league play that you do from some of these guys, or you do trade some of these elite prospects that could turn out to be some of the best players in baseball. It's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't type scenario here for the Orioles and which direction that they want to go. But you have to think they're going to do something here at the deadline, because they got an embarrassment of riches at both the big league level and the minor league level right now, and they're all young. It's not like you got guys here in their early 30s, late 20s. We're talking like 21 to 24, just a ton of talent inside that organization. So you got to think they're going to do something to add specifically an arm. You mentioned they've got 2 front-end starters. It wouldn't be bad to add a third, and they've got the assets to be able to go do it.
Yeah, and they're kind of in the best case scenario too, because if they're in it, like you and I think that they will be, they can make a big acquisition, or for whatever reason, which I don't think they're going to go off the rails or whatever, but if they are, then like you said, they can bleed some of these guys that are a little bit older, because you've got guys that can instantly come in and take their spot. This isn't like one of those deals where you're just drastically reducing the talent level of your roster if you moved, a James McCann at catcher or a Ryan Mountcastle or whatever, stuff like that. If you ended up moving Cedric Mullins, if you were to move any of those guys, you have guys that you could literally fill in. So again, I think they'll be there. I think it's more of an acquisition type thing, but even if they had to sell off, they're still going to be winners because they'll get assets in return, and they'll be able to just promote these guys where they don't have spots for them right now.
Yeah, it's just an embarrassment of riches. It's ridiculous at this point. The level of, rarely do you see the best young talent in the majors also have the best minor league system as well. And that's what the Orioles are sitting on right now. So it will be fascinating to watch what they do. And this is a team that the championship window could be open for the next 10 years because of how good these prospects are. So you want to make sure you manage that properly, because it's kind of like the Oklahoma City Thunder in a way. When do you go all in? When do you make that move to really step up and take the chance with all of the assets, the draft picks you got, the younger players that you have? When do you make that move to try and go after the title? It'll be interesting to see if it's this year for Baltimore, or if they wait, if they see what they can do with the current roster, then maybe make moves the offseason and the next following year.
We know NC State and Purdue is sitting at 9, 146. We know Alabama and UConn is sitting at 11.5, 160.5. That being said, Mike, 2 pennies now shaded towards the juice on UConn. So maybe a little bit of public money starting to trickle in on UConn. People looking and seeing that they've been an absolute beast so far in the tournament. So we got a couple of pennies juice there. But we do have some hypothetical lines should any of these teams advance. Purdue and UConn would be a 5.5-point spread in favor of UConn. UConn and NC State would be a 14.5-point championship game. Oh, man, as much as I like to see the Cinderella, maybe let's not go there. Alabama and NC State would be a 4.5-point spread in favor of Alabama, and then Purdue and Alabama would be a 5.5-point spread in favor of Purdue. Do any of those hypothetical numbers in these matchups that may or may not come about entice you at all?
I already bet UConn minus 5.5 against Purdue. I think it's the most likely championship matchup we get, and I think the number's a little bit short. I would make that game 7, and I think the public would agree with me as well. Like, this will open at 5.5. You will immediately get money on UConn from both the public and professional bettor. I think it moves out to 6 or 7, and then on Monday you're going to get UConn money again. So at some point, if you want to buy back some of it, I think this could get as high as 7.5, 8 before we actually see tip. And to me, there's an option there. If you do want to buy back a little bit of your UConn bet, you can. But 5.5 UConn over Purdue, I think is short. And I think the market will agree with me. And I think that the recreational bettor will be coming in on UConn as well. Like you said, we're seeing UConn money now at 11.5 today against Alabama. I wouldn't be shocked if that tips at 12 or 12.5 because the UConn money will keep rolling in all day long here. And it's the question of whether or not you're going to have quote unquote sharp people, dog bettors that want to come in and take the 12 or 12.5 to somewhat offset the money that we're going to get from UConn on the public side.
Yeah, I'm wondering where this line goes depending on what this Purdue North Carolina State game ends up doing, right? Because if Purdue, there is going to be a contingent of people, Mike, as much as you and I and everyone else, because we're kind of in this bubble, have been paying attention to tournament time. Even if you're not a huge college basketball guy, as soon as March Madness rolls around, you're just hugging your television set. But there might be some people who might be tuning in for the first time today, right? And so with all of that, what if Purdue does go out and win this thing by 15, 16 points against NC State, and these people don't even realize that NC State wasn't even a tournament team leading into like the final week of the season? So I don't know. I tend to lean with you that UConn's going to get the money early on, but I think there could be a role reversal here in which Purdue goes out and trucks NC State and Alabama kind of hangs around to where maybe the public opinion gets swayed a little bit.
It's definitely possible, but I would argue that the exact opposite outcome is most likely, that UConn comes out and trucks Bama and that NC State keeps it close. And if that happens, 5.5 is going to disappear really fast.
Yeah, interesting stuff, though. But again, these are up, guys. If over at your DraftKings account, go in, pop it open. You can take a look, and that is something you can bet right now. Get into your account. And, of course, obviously, if the matchup doesn't happen, you will get a refund if you're wondering how that all goes down. When we come back, let's talk a little NFL draft here on The Handle.
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Summage on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
When we wrap up this Saturday edition of The Handle, stick around. You are going to get a very special edition of Follow the Money live from down at DraftKings Sportsbook at TPC Scottsdale. They're going to give you the latest insights on the Final Four, expert analysis. They're also going to get some exclusive interviews, giving you every single angle of betting the Final Four today. Again, that is immediately following this episode. Stick around for a special edition of Follow the Money live from down at DraftKings Sportsbook at TPC Scottsdale, 3 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Pacific. Matt Brown, Mike Summage coming to you here, talking all things sports today. We haven't even gotten to hockey. We haven't even gotten to horse racing. Got Major League Baseball. We're going to get some NBA a little bit later. But, Mike, let's go ahead and get into something near and dear to both of our hearts, and that is the NFL draft. This is something that has been an incredibly profitable betting endeavor over the last several years. I don't know how confident you feel heading into this one. The news, I don't know. It seems like the news cycle is a little bit broken in this one comparatively to the last few years. Like, typically we have stuff flying all over the place this time of year and all, even if it's the most outlandish thing ever, at least it's something that you and I can take and go, okay, this is total garbage, but at least it's out there. Maybe it's moving the markets because some people believe it, all of that. It's been pretty tame, and I'm sick of it. All right, somebody go out there and make something up. I don't care. Like do something. But yeah, the market's been pretty tame right now.
It feels like about half the news is JJ McCarthy news, and everyone else is just kind of being forgotten. and we've seen him rocket up the draft boards, rocket up the mock drafts, his 3rd round pick at one point during the regular season or during the college football season. Now top 4 apparently is what we're expecting from JJ McCarthy. But you're right. There hasn't been a ton of news at these other positions. I'm interested in the DN position, the cornerback position, the offensive line position. We haven't gotten any of the buzz around those spots. The number 4 pick, that one seems to be the buzz spot. Are we going to trade up there? Are we going to see the Vikings move up? Are we going to see the Vikings move up to 5 with the Chargers? What the Cardinals do? And that seems to be right now the biggest juice here about a month out from the draft.
Yeah, because as you mentioned, Caleb Williams going number 1. This is now moved to minus 8,000. So if you were wondering, you have to bet $8,000 to win 100. Don't do it. Just don't do it. Caleb Williams could get out of bed.
Minus 800?
Yes. I mean, Caleb Williams could get out of bed and shred his Achilles somehow. Like, we know weird things happen. Don't do it. Minus 8,000 on Caleb Williams to go number 1 overall. Now, this is where it does get a little bit interesting. Number 2 overall, Jaden Daniels minus 150, Drake May plus 135. JJ McCarthy is short as 3-1 now to go number 2 overall. Mike, this is where I think we can start separating some of the buzz and the noise from what is actual reality. And while I do believe all of this hype around McCarthy getting, teams' attentions and maybe teams trying to make drastic moves to get up and get him inside the top of the draft, going number 2, I do not think is inside the realm of possibility. I get it. Prototypical guy. You listen to all of the scouts and all that. But this is Daniels and May were the dudes and have been the dudes for quite a while now, proven it on the field. All of these teams, I think, would be foolish to pass on either one of those guys to go with J.J. McCarthy. So I think him getting as short as 3-1, this is where we can start going like, okay, that number's ridiculous.
That number is ridiculous, but it allows you to get a reasonable number on Daniels or May, depending on who you like. You love the fact that you've got a third guy in the mix here because the top 2, who I agree with you, 95% of the time, it's one of those 2 guys here too. And so you're getting a reasonable price on both of them because you have this third option who is being kind of forced down your throat in a lot of ways to be a possible number 2 overall pick in J.J. McCarthy. And I look at these 2 and I've got a Drake May to go 3rd overall ticket. I'm getting a little nervous. The more I've dove into this, the more I like May over Daniels. And again, I'm not a scout, so I don't know everything about this kind of stuff, but May a couple years younger than Daniels. May had more pedigree coming out of here. You look at Daniels, you watch some of the film last year. He was protected pretty well by that LSU offensive line. Drake May was not by that UNC line. It's going to be interesting to see how this ebbs and flows. I still want to try and get both guys at plus 200 for the 2nd and 3rd overall pick. I've got that plus 175 right now and Drake May for 3rd. I want more news, Matt. We need more juice so that these lines move more, so that you can get some plus money prices off bad news.
Yeah, that number 3 pick, Drake May, minus 130, Jaden Daniels, plus 150, J.J. McCarthy, plus 330. But as you mentioned, like, this is where we're really getting into, number 4 pick, number 5 pick is where the draft, air quote, begins. This is where the draft begins. Marvin Harrison Jr., minus 175 to go 4th overall. J.J. McCarthy now plus 175. If we go down to that 5th pick, Malik Neighbors plus 225. Marvin Harrison Jr. now plus 275. J.J. McCarthy now plus 275. And so the way that this all plays out, Mike, is this. We know if you are betting J.J. McCarthy to go 4th overall, you are betting on the Cardinals to trade that pick because they are definitely not taking a quarterback. So it's going to be either Marvin Harrison Jr. or it is going to be a different team picking in that slot. And if you look at the number 5 position, the exact same thing can be said. Justin Herbert ain't going nowhere. So it is either them taking a receiver at 5 because they have no receivers, as you well know, Mike Williams out of town and Keenan Allen out of town, or that pick gets traded and it's going to be a different team picking J.J. McCarthy at 5.
Yeah, it feels like the top 5 is I'm not going to say set in stone because we don't know necessarily the order, but I would be very surprised if the 5 players off the board aren't Williams, May, Daniels, Harrison, and then McCarthy. Yeah. It feels like those 5 guys are going, and the order of which they go is the question, and that really all hinges on what Arizona does at 4. If Arizona drafts at 4, it's Harrison, then we see the Chargers trade out of 5. If they trade out of 4, 5 feels like it's going to be Harrison to the Chargers. So I don't see a ton of world where I don't see a lot of options here where we don't have those 5 players go 1 through 5 overall. After that, then it can get a little wonky here with what the Giants want to do with 6. Are they the team that trades up to 4 with Arizona and tries to go after J.J. McCarthy? We've heard him linked to that Giants team. What does Tennessee do with the 7? Do they want to go wide receiver? Do they want to go offensive line? And you've got Atlanta sitting there at 8, who has a boatload of talent on the offensive side. Is this where we see the first defensive player come off the board? So in a lot of ways, there's a lot of intrigue around the top 5, but it feels like the players that go 1 through 5 are pretty well set in stone. It's just what order do we see 2 and 3? What order do we see 4 and 5? And who makes the move to trade up into the 4 spot, or who makes the move to trade up into the 5 spot?
Yeah, we're looking here, and really the news that I would really like to hear, Mike, that would start to help me mold how I want to go about attacking this thing is how in love with Marvin Harrison Jr. is the Cardinals. Because here's the thing. They will listen to trade offers. We know. They said, hey, we're open for business. Of course you are. You have to. I mean, if any trade offer that is given to you that is way better for you than it is to take a singular receiver, you're always going to take. But it has to be the right trade offer. And so I need to know what is it going to take to wrestle away that 4th pick? Because what if we start to get news that, Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors are kind of like, 1A, 1B on their board. And so it actually wouldn't take all that much to get out of that number 4 pick, because even if they went as low as 6 or 7 in the draft, they would still be able to get one of those two guys. And so now we start the whole chess match of, with all that. So that's kind of a piece of news I would really, really like. And then the other piece of news is like, how high is a team like the Giants, a team like the Vikings, the Broncos, the Raiders, maybe even the Saints get into this discussion over on like a Michael Penix, right? Or a Bo Nix or something. Like, how high are those guys? Like, is it very, very, very likely that Minnesota packages those 2 picks to move up to get one of these other 4, to get one of the 4 guys? Or are they kind of like, yeah, we like Penix, or like we like Nix, and one of those guys is probably going to be there at 23. And so we'll just hold on to 11. I think that there are these little bit of nuggets here that we could get to really start to kind of hone in on how we make these bets.
The problem with that, Matt, is it's lion season in the NFL right now. And every single scenario you played out would be beneficial to the team saying it to say it, right? Mm-hmm. Arizona should come out and say, we love Harrison Jr. We want to take him at 4. It's going to take a Herculean offer to get 4 away from us, right? Minnesota should come out and say, we love Penix Jr. We'd be happy to take him at 23, because then it's one less suitor that you have that's possibly going up for the 4 or the 5. And part of the information that you get right now up to the draft is misinformation. And what do these teams want the narrative to be around them so that they can either get the most possible back in a trade or pay the least possible to move up in a trade? And so it's tough to really decipher the news when it would be beneficial for the team to say that, when they're either trying to trade up or trying to trade back. And that's what makes it tough for me to believe if Arizona comes out and says, we love Harrison Jr. I think they do. I think they obviously do. They're not going to tell us if Neighbors and Harrison Jr. are close, though, because it disvalues their own 4 pick there for someone trying to come up and get it. And that's what can make the betting this draft so tough, is that you've got to be able to filter through what's real information and what's faulty information.
And we know there's a lot of dominoes to fall, and we know any pick can be had with the right offer, but you just don't really hear much about Titans moving out of 7. And so you start to look, and I know it's far down the board, but man, Titans taking an offensive lineman, Titans taking Joe Alt going 7 overall, all these different types of ways you can attack that. There's been almost no buzz about the Titans moving out of that 7 pick. And so it as you said, like, we kind of know the first 5, at least the players, maybe not the exactly which team. It seems like 7 is almost locked in.
Yeah, 7 seems like it's going to be offensive lineman. I'm not positive it's going to be Alt. We saw an article on ESPN come out polling 10 GMs. Only 2 of them had Alt as the top offensive lineman in this draft, yet he's sitting there at minus 350. We'll see if those odds fluctuate as we get closer to the draft.
Let's keep ticking off these sports we're talking today. NBA with Zach Graham when we come back here on The Handle.
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Summage on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Oh, we got something for you out there, guys. If you're not already a VSiN Pro subscriber, well, guess what we're going to give you? We're going to give you the betting splits page absolutely free for 2 weeks. It's a limited time offer. Head on over to VSiN.com/splits. You can see where all the money is moving. For the public bets, for the what we think maybe are some sharp bets, but you can certainly look at where all the handle and all the money is heading, and it's updated every 5 minutes with DraftKings odds. So please go in VSiN.com/splits for your 2-week free trial of the betting splits page. Mike, we know everybody absolutely loves that thing. It just gets hammered over on the website, so you're getting it for free. So go in and take advantage of it.
Yeah, now is your time to try it. If you haven't tried splits before, go in, check it out. 2 weeks free, like you said. And the betting splits, the most popular page outside of the picks page on the VSiN Pro side as well. So
we're not saying that you should just make the bets based on what we're saying is use it as a tool. Maybe it's a tiebreaker. Yep. Maybe it's something that's interesting to give you a game to look into a little bit more. We're not saying that you can go there and it's some sort of magic ticket or anything like that.
No, I use it to look into games. For me, if I notice money moving in a certain direction, a percentage of bets moving in a certain direction, I'll give a game a second look and kind of recap it to see if I missed something.
Now joining us here on the Progressive Guest Line, Zach Graham. He's a senior NBA advisor over at FTN Bets. We have talked college basketball on this program today. We have talked golf. We have talked football. We have talked baseball, but now we get to the NBA. Zach, thanks for joining us, buddy.
Hey, thanks for having me back, guys.
We're just taking off all the sports here. We're going to talk horses later. We're going to talk hockey later. It's going to be absolutely, who knows? Maybe we'll get into curling, maybe do some cricket. I'll start handicapping all of this stuff before it's all said and done. But, Zach, let's get things started here. The first tip of the day, and you do have a play. It's the Cavs and the Lakers. As we sit right now, the Lakers are 5-point favorites with a 229.5 total in this one. Where are you headed?
Yeah, give me the Cavs and the points here. I've really been leaning on our FTN data model of late, and our model has this basically as a pick'em. Obviously, both teams really need this one for playoff positioning, or in the Lakers' case, play-in positioning, although they still have a chance to make it to that 6th seed here with 5 games remaining. Cleveland trying to stay above the 4 seed there, currently the 3, because if you're in that 2 or 3 spot, I think that's the sweet spot for those teams at the top of the East, avoiding the Boston side of the Eastern Conference bracket. And like I said, Lakers not out of the race yet for that 6th seed, certainly in a good position to get into what I've heard some people calling the varsity game of the play-in, that 7-8 matchup. I think they got a little bit of a gift with the Kings and their recent injuries. So I think this one should be a good one, entertaining game. The matinee here on the 4-game slate. Both teams about as healthy as they've been in recent months. So I do like the Cavs here at +5.
Now, we've seen Boston absolutely run away with the Eastern Conference. They locked up the top seed long ago. One of the teams that we were talking about for a while was the 76ers team, but then we had the Embiid injury. Now he's back. We see them trying to fight out of the playoff, or the play-in position, currently sitting at the 8th seed. You don't want to be the 8th seed and take on Boston in the first round here. They're going to try and move up a couple spots here with Embiid, just a game and a half out of the 6th spot right now. Two-part question for you. What do you make of this Sixers team now that Embiid's back? And then what props do you like tonight in their game against Memphis?
Well, I think first you mentioned the matchup against Boston. If you get that 8th seed, you don't really want it, but just what a beating that would be for Boston. Is you run away with the East all year. You got no worries. Then, all of a sudden you got to take on Joel Embiid, who was almost running away with the MVP conversation before he went down. So I think this is going to be a very interesting dynamic here in the Western playoff bracket. Embiid looks pretty darn good coming off a multi-month absence. So when it comes to this game and a couple of props, I've got 2, and both of them actually unders on some player props here for the Sixers. First, I want to take the under on Tyrese Maxey. His prop set at 25.5 points right now, and we're still waiting on a Grizzlies injury report here on the second end of a back-to-back. Maxey, 25.8 points per game on the year, and Sixers rightfully double-digit road favorites here with Embiid back. Maxey's upside not quite as high on a game-to-game basis, and he's actually under on this number, rather, in 15 of the 23 games that the Sixers have won by double digits this season. So you can see the trends kind of pointing towards Maxey maybe not getting to that 38-40 minute range if the Sixers take care of business here and coming under on this number. So potentially losing time in a blowout, which could help Joel Embiid to go under his 3.5 turnover prop that is set today around the industry. I think this line is a bit high, even in a competitive game for Embiid, but going up against Memphis and how Memphis is currently constructed, it feels quite strong. Again, leaning on that FTN data model, has him for 2.8 turnovers tonight in the grindhouse. And if Memphis is without the same cast of characters that they were missing last night, this is a glorified G League team at this point. So I think Embiid actually going to have to work hard to give the ball away 4 times or more tonight. So I like the under there as well.
Let's head to the Pistons and the Nets. Nets are 9.5-point favorites. 214.5 is your total in this one, but you are not going there, but back to the prop market.
Yeah, and I like Nick Claxton and his rebound prop here today. It's set at 9.5, and he's averaging 9.9 boards per game on the season. Matchup against Detroit, obviously, if Jalen Duren gives it a go again, that's a much tougher matchup than if you're going to see a James Wiseman, maybe combined with some Chimezi Metu in there, maybe Tosan Uwoma. I mean, at this point of the year for those teams at the bottom of the standings, it can get very interesting with the names that we're talking about in April NBA. So Claxton, gone over this number in 2 of the 3 meetings between these two teams this season. He's got double-digit boards in 38 of his 67 appearances this year. And again, going back to our data model here at FTN, has him for a hair over 11 in this one today. So I do lean over on Claxton 9.5 boards.
All right, we talked enough about the Eastern Conference here. Let's go to the fun conference. Let's head over to the West. We got 5 games left, 3 teams within 1 game of the top spot there in the West. The bottom half of the West, also very interesting. Right now, your 4 play-in teams, the Pelicans, the Kings, the Lakers, and the Warriors. If this play-in tournament started today, it'd be Warriors-Lakers in that 9-10 spot. Does either team have the ability to actually get out of that, make it into the main bracket, and then put any fear into one of those top 3 teams?
I think the winner of that 9-10 game, again, if it started today, right? I think the winner of the 9-10 game does make it to the 8 seed. And going back to what I talked about earlier with those injuries to Sacramento, I think that is a blessing to the Pels, to the Lakers, to the Warriors, because, you know, Sabonis and Fox are great. Keegan Murray doing well in his sophomore season here. But when you're missing Malik Monk, who was the runaway favorite for 6th man of the year when he went down a few weeks back. You're also missing Kevin Huerter now. So, you know, those guys aren't playoff series winners themselves, but this is already not a deep Kings team. So I do think right now I would give the Lakers the upper hand to come out of the 9-10 game and then take down the Kings, because I think the Pels would probably take care of business at home against a banged up Sacramento team. But once you get into that main bracket, I know you asked only about the play-in. I think all of those teams going to have trouble against the likes of Minnesota or OKC or of course the defending champions.
Talking to Zach Graham, NBA analyst over at FTN Bets. All right, Zach, I'm going to give you 100 Matt bucks, and I'm going to say, hey, here's my 100 Matt bucks, and you can take a future on someone to win it all, but it cannot be the Celtics and it cannot be the Nuggets. Where are you putting your 100 Matt bucks?
I think it's going to be on the Milwaukee Bucks, and that feels like a pretty risky proposition there. But when they've had all their guys healthy so far this season, that starting 5 of Lillard, Beasley, Middleton, Giannis, and Brook Lopez has been one of the top groups in the league in terms of their net rating. So I actually think if they can stay healthy, and again, likely avoid that Boston side of the bracket, maybe set up a little Eastern Conference final matchup there. Once you get to that Final Four, all bets are off. Every team is a little beat up at that point. So, you know, when you've got a player the caliber of Giannis, I think you've always got a chance. Obviously, they went out early last year, but Giannis hurt his knee and was not 100%. So, again, I think that is a pretty good bet. And it's a clearer path towards a potential NBA Finals appearance than some of these other names outside of Denver out west.
A great chance to buy low on the Bucks. Lost back-to-back games against lottery teams. So right now, probably the good time to get a price in there. Real quick, we've got about a minute left here. I'm excited for Clippers-Mavs. I want this first-round series to happen. You've got all kinds of star power on that court. If we do get Clippers-Mavs, who do you like in that opening round 4-5 matchup?
Man, I got to go with my guy Kawhi Leonard, and he's been out a couple games. It looks like Tyronn Lue saying he's going to sit maybe a few more here before the playoffs get rolling. If those Clippers are healthy, similar to the Bucks, like we saw that midseason run where the Clippers went it was like 22-5 over a 2-month stretch. If they can get back close to that type of form, and again, everybody healthy, I think having Russell Westbrook out for a few weeks didn't do them any favors, because if those other guys are flat in their starting group, boom, Russ can come in, give them, you know, an injection of energy off the bench. But Dallas, Luka Doncic, Kyrie Irving, the moves they made at the trade deadline, I think that series goes 7 either way, and I'm not super confident in my Clippers pick, but Kawhi's still my guy.
He is Zach Graham. Find his work over at FTN Bet. Zach, thanks for the time, buddy, and good luck.
No problem. Appreciate it, y'all.
Take the 100 Matt bucks. He would put it on the Bucks, actually, in all of this. And again, 8-1. He could turn the 100 Matt bucks into $800. When we come back, let's talk a little hockey and horses.
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Summage on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
If you are not already a DraftKings Sportsbook customer, go in. New customers can bet $5 on any basketball game, get $150 instantly in bonus bets if you use the promo code VSiN. So go into the App Store, download DraftKings Sportsbook, and when you make that deposit, use the promo code VSiN, VSIN, bet $5 on basketball, get $150 instantly in bonus bets DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. And not only can you have a DraftKings Sportsbook, you can have DK Horse, which we will talk about here momentarily as well as we get into our Hockey and Horses segment. But Mike, I know it's a big day over in racing, and I want to give you ample time to talk about all of the stuff that's going on over in the racing world, but we do got to talk about the stuff over on the ice. Which we will do right now, and we will continue to go on with the NHL. So let's talk your NHL picks.
Yeah, we got 3 games from the NHL. We're looking at a couple monster plus money prices here. We're going to lay the goal and a half. The first one, let's look to the Winnipeg Jets. They're headed in to take on the Minnesota Wild. The Wild out of playoff contention at this point. The Jets and Connor Hellebuyck have been playing phenomenal hockey. Hellebuyck probably going to be your Vezina Trophy winner for the best goalie in the NHL. I have the Jets as a little bit bigger favorite than what we're seeing right now. Right now, they're minus 140 on the board. I had them around minus 155. So if you want to just play the regular line, I don't hate that either. But to me, the puck line is where it's at here. We're getting plus 190 on the Jets, minus the goal and a half. So we're going to take a big shot with the Jets, minus the goal and a half, plus 190 here. You got to love that plus money price, Matt.
Look at you stepping out there with a little plus 190. How about the Predators and the Islanders? That's a little bit later this afternoon. This is 110 on both sides. 6 flat is your total.
Yeah, we're going to look to the first period under here. And this is an interesting case because the Islanders are mid-pack when it comes to first period unders. But when you look at their splits, they are one of the worst teams at first period unders when they're on the road, one of the best teams when they're at home. Well, they're home today, and they're taking on the Predators and UC Saros, who are fighting for playoff positioning right now. So the Preds are going to step it up with a good defensive game here. The Islanders don't score a ton of goals. To me, it's a great look toward the first period under here. So we'll go first period under a goal and a half. Preds Isles plus 105 right now.
Then let's close things out here. Our last puck drop of the evening, the Canucks and the Kings. Currently, slight favorites are the Kings at home, minus 115, minus 105. Canucks on the road, 5.5 the total.
Well, if plus 190 wasn't enough for you, why don't we go plus 210 here, Matt? Another favorite here who I think is a little short. Minus 115 for the Kings, I think should be more like minus 125 in this spot. Vancouver, great story. They've wildly outperformed expectations this year, but they're starting to slow down a little bit, starting to struggle a little more. Kings very much need this hockey game. I think the Kings take care of business here at home by more than 2 goals. We'll go minus a puck and a half here with the Kings sitting at plus 210.
Okay, let's go ahead. We got off the ice here. Let's get over to 3 huge races. I know you have so much to talk about here whenever we head over to the track.
Saddle up, partner. Want to bet the horses with Mike Somich?
When I bet on horses, I never lose. Why? I bet on all the horses.
It's time to pony up. Giddy up.
Let's talk the Wood Memorial. And Mike, the reason these races are important is this is kind of the prep for the Kentucky Derby and all of that. And before we get into your picks here, whenever we hear this stuff about, preparing for the Kentucky Derby, prep races for the Kentucky Derby, what all are we looking at here with all of that? I mean, are all these tracks the same? Are all these tracks different? What are you kind of handicapping with all of that as we head towards the Kentucky Derby?
Well, every track has its own nuances. Some are speed favoring, some favor closers. You do have a sloppy track sometimes, you got a fast track sometimes. Every now and then they're running on synthetic, not on dirt. That obviously makes a difference. But what's really interesting about this specific round of preps is it's the first time we see horses coming from certain places and taking on horses in other places. So you've got the Florida circuit, the Arkansas circuit, the California circuit, the New York circuit, and the Kentucky circuit. Well, we've got horses that are now clashing each other from different circuits. So you're going to be able to tell what races were really the best throughout the prep season. And that's what makes today so important, is understanding, okay, what races do I want to lean on come Kentucky Derby time? Because it's a lot like conferences in college basketball. We saw the ACC do very well this year in the NCAA tournament. That's a positive for them. We're going to see specific races that create key horses. Last year was the Florida Derby. That's how we got to the Winter Mage last year. This weekend is going to show us what circuit was really the best heading into the Kentucky Derby.
So in 2021, a huge bomb wins this one at 72-1. Then in 2022, we see Mo Donegal and Early Voting go at it, which those 2 horses end up winning races. Oh, they were a little bit bigger further down the line. And then in last year, we see a big underdog as well, a big long shot there at 59-1. Is there something about this track that lends a little bit towards underdogs, or was this just kind of, it happens in horse racing sometimes?
This is a little bit of the B squad in the Kentucky Derby,
Okay.
if you will. The best horses don't want to run at Aqueduct. They want to run at Keeneland. They want to run at Santa Anita. They wanted to be in the Florida Derby, the Arkansas Derby last weekend. So because of that, you get a little bit more variance. Last year's draw in the Wood was also a mess. The best horses all had terrible post positions, and there was a hot pace, which created the likelihood for a longer shot to be able to win. This year, I don't see the same thing. I think this is going to be a race that is pretty formful in this spot. I like the 4 deterministic, 7-5 on the morning line. So we're not going crazy here from a price perspective. And this horse I'd like the second most is the second choice, Tuscan Sky, the 9. But again, you can't really get a ton of money or a ton of value out of going favorite, second favorite. So let's look to the inside here, Matt. I think you've got 2 horses on the rail, the 1 Resilience and the 2 El Grande O, that could provide some type of price to spice up the exotics here. So we're going to play an exact because we do like deterministic on top, but we want to find some value underneath. We'll go to the rail with Resilience as the second horse and El Grande O in that exacta as well. So we're going to play 4 with 2-1 as an exacta, meaning deterministic has to win and the 1 or 2 has to run second. We should be getting somewhere in that 12-1, 15-1 range if they don't float up. If they do float up, we get as high as 25-1 on the exacta.
You were right, though, as we were discussing a little bit earlier. No great name. I guess El Grande O would be about the best one in the field, so I'm glad you picked that one. We're going to go with El Grande O. Let's head over to the Bluegrass Stakes. Again, as you were kind of talking about, like maybe some of these races are a little bit more important than some of the other ones here. What are we seeing here in the Bluegrass?
Well, this is the most important prep of the day. It's going to tell us the most moving forward about what we can expect from these horses. We have Dornoch, who was running at Gulfstream Park, won the Fountain of Youth there at Gulfstream Park, which is a major prep. You've got the 10, Sierra Leone, who won the who won the Risen Star. That's down in Fairgrounds. So that's the Louisiana circuit. And then you have a horse like Good Money, who was running at Tampa Bay. He ran for a good 4th in the Tampa Bay Derby. So you've got multiple circuits clashing here. And for me, I'm just out on the 2 favorites here. I think Dornoch did not look good winning the Fountain of Youth, was able to set a dawdling pace up front and didn't look impressive. Beat La Dembro, if you remember him last week.
Yes, I do.
One of your favorite names.
Yeah.
He ran last in the Florida Derby. He did not show up. So not exactly a great race there. And then you look at Sierra Leone, beat a horse named Track Phantom last time out. Well, Track Phantom backed up the bus down the stretch in the Louisiana Derby where we saw Catching Freedom be able to run right by him. So to me, not as impressive a race there either. We're going to go to the 2 horse, a little bit of a price here. BU 8-1 on the morning line. This was a very highly touted horse at Saratoga last year, ran second in his first career debut, and Pletcher thought enough of him to put him in back-to-back Grade 1 stakes after that. He had excuses in both those races. He then came back for his 3-year-old season, ran 5th place in a race where, again, he had a bunch of excuses breaking from the 10 post. All of a sudden, the light bulb went on last race. He was able to break his maiden, win by 2 at 7 furlongs. Now he stretches out. The added distance shouldn't be a problem, and the price is right here at 8-1. So we're going to go with the 2 horse BU as a price. If you want another price, the 1 horse right to the inside, Top Connor 15-1, I think has an outside chance to make some noise underneath as well.
Good Money is the choice there, actually. Good Money is the choice in that one. In all seriousness, BU, ridden by Arad Ortiz, one of the better jockeys, right, in the entire circuit.
He is one of the best jockeys in the world. The Eclipse Award goes to the best jockey, the best horse, the best trainer. And Irad, always one of the jockeys that's up for the Eclipse Award. He's won multiple in his career. Inarguably the best jockey in the U.S. right now.
Let's head over not as big of a field in this one, but the Santa Anita Derby.
Yeah, this is a little tougher. This is, Bob Baffert not allowed to run in the Kentucky Derby. He actually did file an injunction to try and get himself back into the Derby. We'll see what happens there. But as of yet, not allowed to run. And he's got all the cards here. Imagination, the 4 horse, most likely going to be your winner here. Pretty short price right now, 8-5 on the morning line. I don't love the second favorite, Stronghold, who's coming out of a race at the Sunland Derby at Sunland Park. Generally not as big of a prep race. He's getting bet because of that. I'll go to the other Baffert, Winstock, to be able to run second here, the 5 horse who's 8-1. We're going to play a cold trifecta, Matt. So we've got to nail this one. First, second, and third in the exact order. But we'll get paid if we do. That's the beauty of this. So we're going to put Imagination on top, the 4. We'll put the 5, Winstock in second, and we'll go to Stronghold, the 3 and third. Hopefully the 5 in second helps juice the payouts up here.
Wood Memorial, the 4 horse deterministic Bluegrass Stakes, the 2 horse BU, and the Santa Anita Derby, the 4 horse Imagination. If you were wondering about post times, that is actually your post time. Wood Memorial, Bluegrass, and then Santa Anita as well. So be sure and get those bets in. Again, if you don't have a DK Horse app, go in. You could probably use the code handle. We would probably, right, Mike? Probably get you something. Or VSiN.
Just
or
always
something.
use the coast handle.
Yeah,
HANDLE. It's always going to go well.
Seriously, you never go wrong with that. If you're watching this over on DraftKings Network, do appreciate it. We continue on over at VSiN.com with good news and bad news.
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Summage on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Hour number 3 of The Handle here on VSiN. Matt Brown, Mike Summage, running through basically every sport ever existed today here on the show. We have checked off so many of them, Mike. And, before we get into just the good news, bad news of all of the sports world today, I do want to say that there are some 9.5s that are showing up. Now, it is 9 at DraftKings, so what I would say is if you like Purdue, you might want to go ahead and tuck the 9 into your account because the 9.5s are starting to show on Purdue. Also, if you like the over, 146.5s are starting to show as well, where it is still a 146 flat at DraftKings. So you do have options out there right now, and if you do like the favorite, you might want to go ahead and get the 9 in there. It does look like this thing could hit 9.5.
Not surprised we're seeing some 9.5s in the market. This has bounced between 9 and 9.5 all week. So I was expecting you'd see a couple 9.5s. My question is, do they get bought up quickly again? Because we haven't had 9.5 on the board nearly as long as we've had 9 on the board in a lot of spots. So if you like NC State, you find a 9.5, I would play that quickly because I'm not sure how long that 9.5 lives.
Yeah, it is certainly it's certainly toggled already a couple of different times. So at these other places around there. So again, just a little bit of betting advice here. If you like the 9, take the 9. You see 9.5, probably want to pounce on it. It looks like it'll get bought up as well. We're still sticking at 11.5. That being said, I told you the 2 pennies of juice at DraftKings. There's 4 pennies of juice at another book. There's 5 pennies of juice at another book out there. So maybe this thing hits 12. If you do like Bama, I might hold out a little bit.
It'll hit 12. My question is, does it hit 12.5? There's going to be a lot of UConn money coming in today because you're like a lot of people are getting into Vegas right now. They're going to watch these games. Their bets aren't in yet. A lot of casual bettors have not placed their bets early. They're all betting UConn. This thing is going to move toward UConn. We saw 12s earlier in the week. Those got bought up. I would be surprised if this doesn't tip 12 or 12.5.
Let's remind people real quick of the bets in your account in these games.
I took NC State plus the 9.5. Now that it's available again, I would highly recommend going ahead and taking that before it disappears. I don't think 9.5 is going to last too long. And give me the under in that UConn-Alabama game, 160.5. I think Alabama is going to chuck up a bunch of threes. UConn very good defending the three-point line. They also are 303rd in the nation in possessions per game. I think this plays more toward the under than the over. UConn tries to slow it down. They will be efficient on offense, but I don't think you're going to see as many possessions as we've seen in some past Alabama games. So I'll take the under 160.5 there.
Yeah, I went ahead and did. There was a plus 7.5 that came out to plus 154 for Alabama, and it's like I said, I could have gone either way. I'm going to go with the variance of that the threes do fall. If you go the variance that the threes don't fall and want to play UConn minus 13.5, minus 14.5, whatever it might be, and get you some nice plus money on that, I think that's a way that you could attack that game as well, Mike. I think we're of the same mindset here, which is if the threes do fall, it's probably a little bit closer of a game. If the threes don't fall, this thing could end up being a run out. So maybe you want to look at just taking a position one way or the other on this thing and betting it accordingly.
Yeah, this game just screams variance. And it's all going to be about that three-point line and how Alabama shoots the ball. I wouldn't be shocked if we see 40 to 50 threes from Bama. They know they need to shoot and hit threes to be able to win this game. One of the reasons why I also played Sears's made three-pointers prop. It's sitting at 2.5 right now. He took 14 threes against Clemson. I think he is going to be chucking it from long range. I'll take him over 2.5 three-pointers made for Bama as well.
We go around and listen, this is a very busy time of the year for the sports calendar, so we're getting news from all over, from every type of sport out there, and we're going to let you know whether we think it's good or bad.
News. Is it good news?
I got great news, guys.
Or is it bad news?
What type of news is it?
Well, to be perfectly frank, it's bad.
So the story itself is what was really big, was the fact that the Texans made a move and traded for Stephon Diggs. And what this really tells me, Mike, from this Texans standpoint, is they look at that division and they realize, like, we're in a pretty good spot right now. This is our division for the taking. And listen, all we got to do is get into the playoffs. And then once you're in the tournament, weird things can happen and anything can get going. And they went ahead and made the move for Stephon Diggs that they knew there was something going on up there in Buffalo with him. And we started to see, we talked about this during the season, Mike. We saw his routes getting lower. We saw his target share getting lower. We see the stuff going on the sideline, and you just knew it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows and unicorns and stuff up there in Buffalo. And so now Steph Diggs will head on down to the Texans. They went ahead and did something that was a little odd, which was void the final years of his contract. So he's basically in a contract year here for this one. But honestly, I don't mind the move there from the Texans because he is 30. And so sometimes we see these guys hit that age and start to really, really, really decline. And so they can come in and make an aggressive offer if they still think he's got juice. And if he doesn't, then it's kind of like a little one-year rental for them to see what they can do as far as making a run. I'm okay all around with it.
Yeah, I love this for everybody. Buffalo had to get rid of Diggs. Look, his production dropped off drastically toward the second half. You mentioned the sideline issues. There were clearly problems with Diggs in Buffalo. I realize there's nothing left in that wide receiver room, but it's time to retool it. You've got multiple draft picks now. It's a great wide receiver class. You've got Dalton Kincaid, which hit last year for you at the tight end position. Cook ran well for you. You still got Josh Allen. To me, this was the time to move on from Diggs, get something back for him. From the Texans' perspective, look, Tank Dell coming back from a major injury. You need to have some protection. Nico Collins was in and out of the lineup last year as well. And I love the fact they avoided these 3 years. Look, Diggs is he needs motivation every now and then. And this gives him that motivation to come up big and have that prove-it season for the Texans here. So to me, this is a win-win all around. The Texans add an asset at a position which will help them out, and that they have guys coming back from injury, and the Bills move on from a headache and get a draft pick for it. So I think everyone turned out well here. What I was surprised by, Matt, and I love your take on this, Texans went from 25-1 to 16-1 to win the Super Bowl. Should Diggs have cut their odds by 33%?
Yeah, no, I mean, that is what we talk about, where we're just praying for this to happen in the draft market, because we live in such a reactionary thing now. Like, in people just hearing run and bet it. Like they hear news and they run and bet it. And we need it to happen in the draft market. But yes, no, this was obviously a complete massive overreaction. Does this make this Texans team legit from what they did on the defensive side in free agency and all? Yes, this makes this team legit. Like, this is a legitimate team. You always expect a quarterback to take a year 2 leap, and you already had very, very high play out of CJ Stroud as it was anyway, right? So I mean, if he does take that year 2 leap, what is the ceiling for this Texans team? I think it's probably a deep run. I don't think the ceiling necessarily is Super Bowl, but even if it was, 16-1 is still too short of a price to pay on all of that. So for me, it's like, I mean, yes, better team for certain. 16-1, absolutely not.
Yeah. Maybe 22-1.
Yeah.
Maybe 25-22, 25-23, but down to 16.
They're shorter than the Eagles.
Yeah. No.
Like they're shorter. No. They're shorter than the Eagles and the Cowboys and the Packers and whatever. Like they're shorter than all those teams.
Buy the hype, Matt. Buy the hype.
Oh man, but I will say this though. If I like what they did organizationally here, which is look at the division and say, okay, we were probably already the best team. Let's go ensure that we're the best team in this division. Let's get into the playoffs and see if we can run hot. I mean, it's not crazy. You and I have seen it in our lifetime. The Giants were not the best team in the NFL and ran hot through the playoffs and won a Super Bowl. Like, you just get in the tournament and weird things may or may not be able to happen for you. And so I really do like this strategy from a franchise standpoint because you've got a young quarterback. So take advantage, maximize why you've got the quarterback on the rookie deal, maximize why you've got some of these young receivers that don't make a ton of money. I think this is all great strategy by the Texans. I'd be hyped to be a fan right now if I was in Houston.
Hey, you struck gold with CJ Stroud. Make the most of it. Make the most of these first 4 or 5 years when you have him on that contract. And that's why I also love the saying, hey, we're going to waive these last 3 years. Then you don't have to worry about Diggs when he's 33 and frustrated because the younger wide receivers are better than him.
I agree. Absolutely. Good deal all around for this one. The A's are going to be moving out of Oakland. It looks like they're going to be going down the road, and they're going to play in Sacramento for the 2025 to the 2027 seasons before the stadium is completed in Las Vegas. There is an option for an additional year for whatever reason that the stadium is not completed. Mike, living here going through all of this, I am so incredibly over this story. It doesn't matter to me where they play, what's going on. I mean, whatever. Play in Sacramento for the next decade for all. I'm so over this story.
Yeah, I mean, they're not even very good, right? So, do we really? If the tree falls in the forest and no one's there to hear it, does it actually make a sound? That's kind of what we feel about A's baseball right now. I think it's a good thing. Look, it's a mess in Oakland. And no one wants to go to those games in Oakland when they know it's just a dead man walking there from a franchise perspective. May as well give it to Sacramento, see if they want to care about it, and see if you can build up the fan base a little bit for a team that's going to be in Nevada, which is the quick hop on a puddle jumper down to Las Vegas. So I think it's probably a good thing they're getting out of Oakland. But to me, there's really no upside for anybody in this spot.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the upside, I guess, just for the A's is that you get out of that stadium because
just get out.
It is it's a complete. I mean, it's you remember the story coming out where there were feral cats were living in this stadium and stuff, and there was a reliever, and I'm not saying this to be funny. This is a real story that came out like a month after it happened. There was a reliever one time who was warming up in the bullpen and had to go to the bathroom and went into the bathroom, and the door handle fell off, and they tried to call him into the game, and he was locked in the bathroom. Like, he couldn't get out of the bathroom. Like, this is real stuff that's happening at the stadium. I mean, like, get him out of there. Who cares where they play? Put them in a AA stadium. It's going to be better than what they've got at Oco.
And right now there's 2,000 people, 3,000 people. I know the ticket sales say 5,200 basically a game. There's like 2,000 people at that.
Tops.
It's not going to get better.
Tops.
It's not going to get better the next couple of years. It's going to get worse.
Yeah.
You might as well just get them out of there.
Yeah. Like you said, you at least build up maybe a fake fan base to where, because once they leave Oakland, like, only the most diehard of diehard people are going to care about that team anymore. That relationship got so tarnished and so just ripped to shreds. Yeah, like you said, I mean, it gives them 3 years to kind of get a fake fan base that maybe you get some people from Sacktown to hop on a Southwest.
Well, and everyone loves a deadline. You now have a deadline for when baseball's leaving Sacramento. If you want to go to Major League games, you got a couple years to do it. You might as well go. It's not like Sacramento has a ton going on from a sports perspective either.
Hey, Mike, you know what we're about to do? We're going to tick off yet another sport as we talk UFC with Jimmy Smith here as we come back, as we talk everything but cricket here on The Handle today.
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Summage on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
If you are not already a VSiN Pro subscriber, we are going to do a little bit for you here. We're going to give you 2 weeks free of the betting splits page. You go to VSiN.com/splits. You can go in. You can see where the money is coming in. You can see the handle. You can see the bet side of things. And again, Mike, as we talk about a lot here, one of the most popular pages over at VSiN.com, VSiN.com/splits. And we're not saying it's the end-all, be-all, but what we say is you can go in, you can get some information. Maybe you find something interesting, and it can lead you towards a bet. It is not a given. It's not like, hey, here's what you bet. It is take the information and use it for maybe something down the line.
Yeah, not something that I use as a primary handicapping tool, but it is a great tool to go in and look at, hey, what game did I not necessarily look at, but I see the money's flowing a certain direction. I want to give it a second look. So it's a great, tiebreaker, if you will, and a great tool to use if you want to be able to kind of handicap a game that you see money moving in a certain direction.
Yeah, and perhaps there's a game that just, for whatever reason, you glossed over, and then you start to see like there's all kinds of action on it, and you wonder like, hey, what did I miss, right? At least it gives you something to kind of tune into and go to your Twitter machine and see if there was some breaking news that you didn't pay attention to.
Nailed it, Matt. It's free for 2 weeks. Second most popular page.
VSiN.com/splits. Get on over there. Now join us here on the Progressive Guest Line, Jimmy Smith. He is host of SiriusXM Unlocking the Cage. You can find him at the Twitter machine at Jimmy Smith MMA. Jimmy, how you doing, buddy?
Good. You know what is Money in the Bank, me?
There you go.
Talk about it, right? It's a tool that you can use. I'm gold, so that's why you guys keep having me back.
There it is, Jimmy. So listen, we're not gonna put lipstick on a pig here. This is a fight night card that is bridging the gap to UFC 300. With all the stuff that's going on in the sports world today, probably not going to be tuned into a ton outside of the hardcore sports fans of the UFC. But that being said, let's go ahead and talk about at least the main event and co-main event. We'll start with the main event and Brendan Allen and Chris Curtis. We know that last time we saw Allen lose actually was to Curtis. He finds himself as a minus 225 favorite here, plus 185 on Curtis. The over-under of 2.5 rounds is shaded greatly towards the over in this one. Do we think that Allen has gotten significantly better since the last time they fought?
Yes, but I have a little proviso there. Chris Curtis has fought better talent, right? You kind of see how they gave Chris Curtis, all right, Joachim Manson, that's an experienced guy. Kelvin Gastelum is a guy who's been through the ringer before. They gave him more experienced guys. When I look at Brendan Allen's record since the Chris Curtis fight, he's done very well. They didn't give him Nazaruddin Imavov, which ended up being a no contest for Chris Curtis, clash of heads. That's a very tough guy. Brendan Allen really didn't get those guys. I don't have a ton of faith in Paul Craig. I think he's one-dimensional. So the people that are looking at Chris Curtis from the outside go, yeah, he has had, been up and down since, but he's also gotten tougher fights than Brendan Allen. Brendan Allen's streak is impressive, but look at the names. The names aren't there.
So are you looking dog here with Curtis, or are you looking Allen as the favorite?
I do think Brendan Allen has improved more than Chris Curtis. And also, we look at Chris Curtis's last fight. He was solid. He was good. Wasn't blowing anybody away. He's a good counterpuncher. He's also a late notice replacement. Remember, it was supposed to be Marvin Vettori. He didn't get a full camp. All of that works against Chris Curtis. If he had a full camp, I might be thinking dog. He did not. Against a guy who's a grinder with a great grappling game. That's the reason the over is preferred on this one. Is Brendan Allen's a great grappler. He knows how to take a fight into deep water. That's the kryptonite of a guy who didn't get a full camp, which Chris Curtis did not. I'm still going with the favorite here. You have to bet a lot to make some money, but I'm still going with the favorite in the main event.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm tempted maybe to play Allen inside the distance, but I can't quite get there on that one. Let's go to the co-main and maybe a couple of names that people aren't familiar with. Alexander Hernandez and Damon Jackson. As we sit right now, another big favorite, Hernandez minus 192. Jackson coming in at plus 160. How do you see this one playing out?
See, what I look at now, and I'm the old head, I'm the expert supposed to know all these names. Yeah, Alexander the Great Hernandez was one of those guys who had a great run at 55. He was supposed to be kind of the next big thing, ran into this guy, maybe you've heard of him, Cowboy Cerrone, made a lot of old man comments, and got the brakes beaten off of him. And he's never been the same guy. And so when I see minus 200, when I looked at these odds, and they were a little higher yesterday, maybe some smart money's coming in on the underdog here. But when I was looking at this, I went minus 200 on a guy who's been up and down, win some, lose some since the Cowboy Cerrone fight. I would never. This is one of my just things in life. When you see that up and down performance, you see that up and down record, you can get more than 1.5 odds on somebody. If you're going 2-1, take the dog on this one. Not that the dog is fantastic. Damon Jackson's not a great fighter, but Alexander Hernandez has been up and down since the Cowboy Cerrone fight. I got to go with the dog in this one.
Jackson right now plus 160 over at DraftKings. So even getting a little bit better of a number there. The under in this fight is juiced to we're juiced to the under here, under 2.5 rounds, minus 140 in this spot. Do you think, or I'm sorry, minus 180 in this spot, so pretty heavily juiced toward that under. Do you think this is a fight that ends early?
No, I think it's a fight that ends late. That's another thing, too. If I'm putting money on Damon Jackson, I think it's one of those grinding kind of fights. Alexander Hernandez, he's big for the weight class, going down to 145 pounds. He's not necessarily a power striker guy. He's not a power finisher. Certain guys have size. It doesn't translate necessarily to finishing power. Anthony Hernandez is one of those guys. Even when he wins, it tends to be a little bit later. The over on this one, I think, is the smart bet. I'm going with the underdog. Make the money. Take both of them.
Jimmy, let's go ahead and skip to next week at UFC 300. Pretty good card here. I know they're making it out. They're saying it's the greatest card of all time. I'll debate it. It's the greatest card of all time, but I'll say, a pretty good card here. As you look at the main card, I mean, there's good undercard fights as well. As you look at the main card, what fight really gets you excited, and why is it Gaethje Holloway?
Look, here's the deal. I look at Gaethje Holloway. That's a banger for sure. I actually thought, and when I look at the odds in this fight, there's some odds that are way out there that I don't really understand. This is one where I thought Gaethje would be a bigger favorite. Right now, roughly minus 200, depending on your book. I thought he'd be much bigger favorite in this fight. What you're betting on in this one, are you betting on the power of Justin Gaethje or the durability of Max Holloway? Because you're betting Gaethje, are you betting early or are you betting late? I'm leaning a little bit more toward a long fight where he beats him up pretty good. But here's another X factor here. I know Justin Gaethje is a very tough fighter. I know he's a big puncher. When you have a guy in front of you that you like and you're winning and you're banking rounds and you're going, you know what, do I really want to extend myself enough to get the finish when I got Islam Makhachev and a division full of killers at 155? Think about that, too. I think he'll test the waters, try and get him out of there early. If he doesn't knock him out in the first round, he might go into that mode of like, okay, I'm going to keep beating him up. I'm not going to stress myself out to get the finish when I know I have a very tough division in front of me at 155. I think that decision might get made in this one. I'm kind of leaning toward the over if you're taking Justin Gaethje.
Hey, we've seen the over 3.5 get bet pretty heavily here right now, minus 166 juice on the over in that fight. So people are expecting a longer fight there. Let's switch over to the main event here. We got Pereira taking on Hill. Pereira right now, minus 148 on the board. What are you expecting from the main of UFC 300?
You know, Jamal Hill has said it. I'm going to go in there and bang and knock this guy out. The only thing this guy does at the elite level, and I don't mean that as an insult, is Pereira can knock out anybody from 185. And I'm hearing from his sparring partners, dude, this guy's got heavyweight power. He can put heavyweights on their butt. And you're going out there going, I'm going to knock this guy out. If you played smart and you wrestled him, you took him out of his element, and you used different facets of your game, you can beat him. If you stand and bang with him, I'm telling you, he can knock out anyone in the world. And gentlemen, the definition of heavy-handedness is it's an ugly punch. It is not beautiful. It's not placed perfectly, and you are rocked back looking at the ceiling. That's how Pereira hits. It's these ugly, like, kind of punches, and guys are getting their heads snapped back, and they're getting finished. We saw that in the Yuri Prochazka fight. Wasn't a beautiful shot that laid him out. The guy is just naturally really heavy-handed. I think Jamal Hill has made a decision to make this a kickboxing match against a world-class kickboxer. I think that's going to bite him. I'm actually a little surprised the odds aren't heavier. At minus 140, I'm taking Pereira all day.
Jimmy, this is a betting show, and so I don't think there's tons of betting advice here in this Bo Nickel fight that's going to kick off the pay-per-view card. He's minus 2,100, so I don't think that there's a ton there in all of that, and I don't think people want to be taking Brundage at 11-1, but more your thoughts just on Nickel as a prospect, why people might want to tune in and pay attention to this first fight, and what do you think the ceiling is for Bo Nickel? Obviously, this is kind of the showcase fight here, right? We're going to put him on 300. We're going to give him a guy that he's going to beat so that we can show the world what Bo Nickel's all about.
Right. Let me explain very quickly. A lot of people don't understand. If you don't watch amateur level wrestling, NCAAs, Olympics, that kind of thing, he's comparatively old. Right? He had an international career. There was a wrestler named David Taylor in his way. That's why he's not going to the Olympics. And so he tried the international wrestling scene, came to MMA. They know we only have a few years of this guy in his prime. He's already, I believe, 27 years old. 3 or 4 years is probably all we're going to get out of him. That's why they're fast-tracking him a little bit. That's why he's opening up this card. That's why we're showcasing him, is we only have a few years to capitalize on this guy. Good-looking, has charisma. He's an excellent finisher. He understands the game. That's why he's in this position. But what the UFC is trying to do is get as much as they can out of him because he's starting in the sport very, very late. Look, explosive. He has everything until he reaches the contender level. That's going to be the test.
I like it. Yeah, I mean, it's not bettable, in my opinion, in any way, shape, or form, but it is at least something that we can see what he looks like here under the big bright lights, all the pressure and things like that, and see how he takes that moving forward. He is Jimmy Smith. Join us here on the Progressive Line. You can find him over on SiriusXM, Unlocking the Cage, and on the True Machine at Jimmy Smith MMA. Jimmy, thanks for the time, buddy. Appreciate it, and good luck.
Anytime, gentlemen. Appreciate you.
Woo, you don't want to get into a scrap with old Bo Nickel there, Mike. I can promise you that. Even he might not look like much, but you don't want to get in a scrap with him.
I don't want to get in a scrap with any of these guys, Matt. They'd all take me to the mat pretty fast. Not gonna lie.
We didn't get to all of our Major League Baseball bets that are on our card, but we will now. Coming back to baseball here on The Handle.
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Summage on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
If you do not have a DraftKings Sportsbook, head on over to the App Store, download DraftKings Sportsbook, and when you make that first deposit, use promo code VSiN, V-S-I-N, and when you do, you can bet $5 on any basketball game, and you are going to get $150 instantly in bonus bets just like that. Just because we love you so much, and you use the promo code VSiN, V-S-I-N. DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Matt Brown, Mike Summage here on The Handle. We have ticked off almost every sport there is in the menu over at DraftKings. And that's a lie, because there are a lot of sports that you can bet on over at DraftKings, including the American Cornhole League. Mike, I don't know if you took a look at this or not, but there's one team here in Hunter Thorson and Carson Getty. They must have to throw opposite-handed or something, because the favorite's 450. They're 65-1. They're 65-1
I'm surprised.
How are you that much worse at the cornhole? If you're a pro cornholer, how are you that much worse at cornhole than the people that are the best at it?
I mean, if we're handicapping names too, Hunter and Carson feel like they should probably be pretty good at cornhole too, right?
or that seems like country club names. So maybe they're more like shuffleboard or like, one of the, like something like that, right? That seems like country club names. They're probably better. They would probably, who's the favorites? It's just Mark and Tony. They'd probably kill Mark and Tony on the golf course, but maybe not in cornhole.
Maybe beer pong. They'd take them down.
Yeah, cricket. We got some. If anyone wants to bet the IPL today, the Mumbai Indians are minus 160 favorites over the Delhi Capitals, who are plus 125.
Yeah, Mumbai is going to be really tough in that one. I'd lay the wicket and a half.
Yeah, something along those lines. We did get going over in Major League Baseball. The A's are up 3-0 on the Tigers there in the 6th inning. An early run for the Twins. It's 1-0 there over the Guardians, and then scoreless in the Marlins and the Cardinals. Didn't get to a couple of the bets that are in our accounts, Mike, so I'm going to make sure that we get to those. We have a little bit later in the day coming to you the Mariners and the Brewers. Currently, it is the Brewers and DL Hall as minus 120 home favorites over the Mariners and Bryce Miller. Miller and the Mariners are even money underdogs, so not bad there. 9 is your total, and you are coming in on a total bet here.
Yeah, we're going to go to the under first 5 here. Like both of these starters are younger guys, both in their early 20s here, who I believe have quite a bit of upside coming out, taking the hill here. So we're going to go under first 5, 4.5 here right now, getting minus 110 over at DraftKings. Not really afraid of either of these offenses, especially with the way the Mariners have been hitting the ball. They hit the ball better at home than they do on the road as well. So like the fact that we're in Milwaukee for this spot. I don't see a ton of runs early here. So we're going under 4.5, first 5, Brewers, Mariners.
I like it. Bryce Miller, a guy that is a pretty intriguing prospect there for the Mariners. It's an interesting pitching staff for the Mariners overall, and one that will ultimately determine the success of this team. But it's a bunch of young dudes they're going to have to rely on. Wu is currently in a rehab assignment for them. He'll be up here in the next week or two. So another young starter in there with this team. So Kirby got rocked in his last start, but another guy that has super promise for this Mariners team. And so it's really, they're going to go as far as just these young arms take them.
Yes, they will. And they've got a young bats as well. I mean, obviously Rodriguez there, the player that they need to step up on the offensive side. But this is an exciting Mariners team, and that West could be wide open, especially if we see the Astros continue to struggle.
Let's head to another game in which we actually both have bets. Didn't talk about any of this stuff, but Blue Jays and the Yankees. This is a 7:05 Eastern start, 4:05 Pacific. About a coin flip. Yankees minus 115. Jays are minus 105. Kevin Gausman is going to be on the hill for the Jays. Clark Schmidt on the hill for the Yankees. 7.5 is our total, and you're going to go with the road team.
I am going to go with the road team here. I got the Blue Jays at plus 100 here, like the Gausman matchup against Schmidt on the mound. I think that's an advantage Blue Jays. And lineup-wise, look, this Blue Jays team hasn't hit the ball, but they are just as good of a lineup as the Yankees lineup when they are swinging the bats well. At some point, Bichette and Guerrero are going to turn this around for the Blue Jays. I'm willing to take the better pitcher with what I believe is equal lineups here at plus money. So give me the Blue Jays at plus 100 in this spot, Matt.
Yeah, I took under 5.5 Ks. And like I said, I play these pitcher props a decent amount here early on in the season. Clark Schmidt, 38 career starts. He's got a 21.8% K rate. That's not one of the upper echelon guys. Last season averaged less than a strikeout per inning, which obviously plays into this as well. He got to 6 Ks, which is what it would take to get to the over of this 5.5. He got to 6 Ks in only 11 of his 32 starts last season as well. So barely hit 33% on this one. It's a small sample, but the Blue Jays are actually only striking out at 20.9% on the young season so far here in 2024. That's actually 22nd most in Major League Baseball. They're walking 11.5% of the time as well, which is 4th most in the majors. And really the reason I bring this up from the walking thing, Mike, is that can get pitch counts up. And as soon as we get pitch counts up, then guys got to come out of the game. And if guys are out of the game, they can't strike people out. So that's just another thing that's going on here. And then as far as plate discipline goes for this Jays team here, pretty early on, they're 26th in O-swing percentage. And we keep talking about all of these advanced stats in baseball that we're going to be looking at. O-swing percentage is when teams are swinging pitches outside of the strike zone. So the O standing for outside the strike zone swing percentage. They're 26th in Major League Baseball. So they're not swinging at bad pitches either. They're making these guys work and making them put it over the plate. And so only 4 teams better than them at swinging at pitches inside the strike zone on the young season so far. And so I don't know if Schmidt can make it to 6 strikeouts, just given everything that we know about this game and given what we know about this Blue Jays lineup here early on in the season. So give me the under on 5.5 strikeouts for Clark Schmidt.
Now, do you lean toward unders early in the season just because of pitch counts and the fact that you don't have some of these pitchers that are fully ramped up at this point?
I lean towards unders most of the time on these strikeout props as it is anyway, but certainly early on in the season because, like I said, and a guy like Schmidt, too, is a younger-ish guy. If he starts getting hit early on, if he starts getting shelled, even if that pitch count starts getting up, man, we're starting to see guys get pulled after 5 innings when they've only thrown 70 pitches now, right? Because they are so scared of you reaching that 100-pitch threshold. They're like, man, what if he goes out for the 6th inning and has to throw 30 pitches in the inning? And so they just pull him after 5 innings, even with these kind of smaller pitch counts and stuff. So, yeah, I'm leaning unders anyway, but specifically these younger starters, specifically earlier on in the season, because these managers have gotten so incredibly conservative with these dudes, and they're just not letting them go very often. We saw yesterday, I mean, there were a couple of different guys that were just cruising in games yesterday. Got pulled after 5 after 68 pitches. One guy got pulled after 5 after 71 pitches. Stuff that we would just never have seen in the past, but they're just not letting them ramp it up too much, and certainly not early on in the season.
Yeah, I would tend to lean toward unders early too. And I think that the handicap, it's pretty logical, right? You're not seeing those same pitch counts. We're also seeing pitchers be treated very differently over the last 4 or 5 years where we do have these earlier hooks. You mentioned, going 5 and 75 pitches is normal now. You don't see the consistency of the 100-pitch guys going 7-8 innings every inning, every start, and that affects those strikeout props.
So one game I wanted to mention, and it's not a bet that's in my account, but I think it's going to be a prop of some sort that enters the account. I just want to see lineups whenever they come out. So the White Sox and the Royals today, it is Chris Flexen and Mike Wacha. This has a total of 9 as it is anyway, Mike. And then we take a look, and sometimes there are outliers whenever we're looking at these. Sometimes there are outliers whenever we're looking at these wind patterns and stuff. It is 21 miles an hour out right to left right now over in Kansas City. And so 2 pitchers that I'm not super, super high on as it is anyway in Flexen and Wacha. And granted, these lineups aren't great, but when you're getting aided by a 20-mile-an-hour wind that's blowing, out to left field, I'm going to look at a couple of these right-handed batters and see if I can't get some sort of home run prop into the account and just hope that I can get a wind-aided home run out of one of these dudes.
Yeah, don't hate the idea of taking a couple righties there, see if you can get, plus 450, plus 350 on an anytime homer there. Also, don't mind looking at the over here. We've seen this move. We're minus 115 to the over 9. I would expect that continues to climb. This might go off as high as 9.5 here. So don't hate to look toward the over. And in these random games, I also lean toward the big dogs. Like plus 185 in a game, which is going to have higher variance than most because of home runs, to me is the proper side. So I'm never the Royals. I'm never the under here. Slight leans toward the White Sox in the over.
Yeah, interesting stuff going on over at the Valero. As I said, Mike, never easy. So Akshay Bhatia even through 7. Denny McCarthy 3 under through 7. Brendan Todd 2 under through 7. Alex Noren 7 under through 10. Ooh. So now we have Bhatia at 11 under. McCarthy at 9 under, Todd at 8 under, and then we have a couple of guys in Noren and Henley and Ben Martin and Thorborn Olsen and Rory McIlroy and all this are sitting kind of in that 5 under, 6 under range. So maybe this thing is not done yet. It is never easy in golf. Apparently there's great scoring conditions going on out there for everybody except Bhatia today.
Yeah, well, that was the one big part of the handicap, right? That people wouldn't be able to go low today, and all of a sudden we got people going low today. It makes it a lot more difficult to be able to hang on to those type of leads.
I mean, we can't see because we're doing that. I assume the wind is just not blowing today because there's a lot of guys 3 and 4 under and stuff on the day, and that course is gettable if the wind is not blowing. We will continue to update you on everything going on in the sports world out there and give you every single bet that did make our card today when we close things out here on The Handle.
This is The Handle with Matt Brown and Mike Summage on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
All the money is hitting the road down to DraftKings Sportsbook at TPC Scottsdale for the Final Four. A special edition of Follow the Money live today, right after this program, about 15 minutes from now. Stay wherever you are watching, listening, whatever it is, for a special edition of Follow the Money coming from DraftKings Sportsbook down at TPC Scottsdale. They're going to have insights, analysis, exclusive interviews, all of that to give you a betting edge for the Final Four. Again, coming up immediately after this program. Don't touch that dial, as they used to say. Mike, you remember that? Don't touch that dial. Don't touch that dial.
I remember that. Yeah.
There are no dials anymore, but it's whatever. Don't push that button. Don't tell Siri to turn it off or whatever the kids say these days. Kids didn't even know there were dials.
Who doesn't love a good live show too?
Yeah.
Live down from TPC to Scottsdale down in Arizona. It's going to be a blast. Guys, stay tuned.
I didn't even think about that. Kids don't even, there's no dials. There haven't been dials in 2 decades. Yeah. No. Don't touch that button. Don't tell Siri to change it. Yeah.
Leave your touch screen alone.
Yeah. Don't keep Alexa right where she's at. How about that? Like that's what we'll go with that. We do have those games going on. Remember that early first pitch in the A's and the Tigers? That is still 3-0 with the A's. They got 3 runs just on 4 hits, but that's good enough when the other team doesn't score at all. That 6-1 Tigers team being shut out by the 1-7 A's right now. 3-0 over there in that one. My little under bet and not looking so good in the Guardians and the Twins. It is 3-1 as we head to the 3rd inning. So, not looking great there in that one. It looks like we're having some control issues over here because that's 3 runs on 2 hits. So that's also never any good either whenever we're looking at that, Mike. So whatever, still some time to get there.
Yeah, but play the first 5 under 4.5. Not loving the fact that there's 4 runs on 2 total hits in the game. We got the Twins 1 run, no hits, no errors. The Guardians 3 runs, 2 hits, 1 error. Not phenomenal when you're playing the under.
Yeah, super. Whenever we look at it, we're like, these pitchers must be getting shelled. Oh no, they're not getting shelled. There's walks and errors. So walks and errors is great. That said, those are not the only baseball plays that are on our cards today. So let's go ahead and run through what you put in yours.
Yeah, I got the Blue Jays plus 100 taking on the Yankees here. I feel like we got an advantage on the mound, and I think we're about equal on the lineup side. So we'll take the Blue Jays as a slight dog today. We mentioned that we're going to take the Mariners and the Brewers under first 5 here. That's at 4.5 as well. And then we're going to go to the O's, and we're going to lay the half run with Tyler Wells and the Orioles today. Advantage both on the mound as well with the lineup. And at some point, you got to expect that the Pirates are going to regress as well. So we're going to lay that half run with the O's. That's plus 100 as well on the baseball side. Matt, I know you got a couple baseball bets as well. What else are you looking at?
Yeah, one not looking great there in the Guardians and the Twins. I did take under 8.5. But hey, listen, we're whatever. There's time. Yeah, it's early. There's time for that one to get home. I also took the under 8.5 in the Dodgers and Cubs. That's sitting 8 right now. 8 still playable. It just obviously increases your push equity in all of that one. Again, no batter in either lineup has seen either one of these starters. We have a super youngster there in Jordan Wicks. We have a guy coming over from overseas in Yamamoto. So it's going to be a fresh look for all these guys. Sometimes you need to get a little tape on these dudes to be able to figure them out. And so I expect them to have some success here. Wicks, a super, super highly touted prospect, former first rounder that's looked really good in his limited amount of time in the majors. And of course, Yamamoto was one of the most hyped free agent signings in the offseason. So I'm going to go look, and as we said, we got a little bit of other stuff working for us here. It's still cold there. The ball doesn't fly as far. It's like 45 degrees, and it's also some wind blowing in at about 8 to 10 miles an hour from center field. So a couple different things working as for there as well. So took the under 8.5. I also in that Yankees game took the under 5.5 Ks on Clark Schmidt. As I mentioned, this has just not been a high strikeout guy since he's gotten to the majors. He's averaged less than a strikeout per inning since he's been in the majors. 38 career starts of just a 21% strikeout rate as it is anyway. And yes, it's a small sample size for this Blue Jays team, but this Blue Jays team just not striking out very much here in 2024. Now that could change. There's always regression that could set in, but we do have a team that's only striking out about 20.9% of the time so far. We have a team that's walking a ton, 11.5% of the time. That's 4th most in the majors. And if we can get those pitch counts up, get these starters out of the game, well, a starter that's not in the game can't strike out batters. And so that's kind of what I'm going with there in that one, Mike. So looking for that plate discipline to continue, that low strikeout rate to continue there for this Blue Jays team, and get Clark Schmidt out of there without him striking out 6 of them.
I like this. Just let them get shelled. Let the Blue Jays just put up a nice, quick, early 5 spot. We can get both those home. He gets out of the game before he gets a chance.
Best case scenario for both of us, right? Like, win-win. Blue Jays come out, score 8 runs, get him on out of there, and everything works out perfectly for us. We did do our hockey and horses segment as we always do, so let's go ahead and head over there. What do you have on the ice today?
Yeah, we got 2 big plus money prices here laying a goal and a half. The first one, we're going to take the Winnipeg Jets laying the goal and a half against the Minnesota Wild today. Got Connor Hellebuck most likely going to be your Vezina Trophy winner, and the Jets here looking for playoff points in the race right now in that Central Division. The Wild have been eliminated here. I'll take the minus a goal and a half with the Jets plus 190. Love that big plus money price there for a team that I think should be a bigger favorite than they are in the game. And then we're going to go to the Kings tonight. They're taking on the Canucks at home. The Kings need every point they can get right now. This Canucks team starting to reel a little bit after having a season where they heavily outperformed expectations. I think they regressed a little bit back to the mean, and the Kings, like I said, need these points. So we'll lay the goal and a half with the Kings as well. Catch the plus 210 there on the puck line. So 2 nice plus money prices there. Then let's look to a first period under here. We've got the Predators headed in to take on the Islanders. We're going to go under a goal and a half in the first period. The key to this one's the Islanders. They are a very good under team at home, a very bad under team on the road. We get them at home in this spot, get 2 very good goaltenders. So we'll go first period under Preds Isles, a goal and a half as well, Matt.
This is a big day in horse racing. 3 very big races, 3 key races as we head towards the Kentucky Derby that goes down in May. So let's head over to the Wood Memorial.
Yeah, Wood Memorial, we're going to go with the 4 deterministic, 7-5 on the morning line, going to be your favorite. I think deservingly so. Let's try and find a little value here. Let's play an exacta, put that 4 on top, and then we're going to go with the 1 and the 2 in the second spot. Both of them are going to be a little bit of prices here, so we're hoping we get somewhere in that 12-1, 15-1 type range with the favorite on top of a cold exacta. Go over to Keeneland, the Bluegrass Stakes here. This is going to be the race of the day. You've got the 4 Dornoch taking on the 10 Sierra Leone. I'm against them both. Let's go with the 2-horse BU for Todd Pletcher. Irad Ortiz picks up the mount. It's a horse that was very highly thought of last year at Saratoga. Had a bunch of excuses in his race, and the light bulb came on last time. I think he repeats that performance. Nice price there at 8-1 on BU. And we'll close out the horse racing day over at Santa Anita Park. This is the Santa Anita Derby. Bob Baffert holding all the cards here. The 4 Imagination going to be your favorite. The 8-5 on the morning line. I'd be surprised if he goes off more than even money. Let's try and find a little bit of value playing a cold trifecta here. We'll put the 4 Imagination on top, the 5 Winstock in second, and we're going to put the 3-horse Stronghold in third. So 4, 5, 3 cold trifecta there. See if we can get somewhere in that 14, 15-1 range and create some value around a short price favorite that should win.
Mike, we said it was coming, and it did. So hopefully if you wanted Purdue, you went ahead and bet it because it is now 9.5. So that 9 is gone. 9.5, 146 is our total. Doesn't matter to you because you like the other side here. So if you were holding out for that hook to show up at DraftKings on NC State, good on you. It is there.
Yep, take that 9.5 now. We're not going to get to 10, and there is a very good chance we get back to 9. Every time we've hit 9.5 in this game, we've seen NC State money come in. I think that's the correct side in this spot. I don't think we're going to see that tight whistle that we saw against Tennessee. I think that's going to be a point of emphasis for these referees. And to be honest, like this is a game, again, where I'm going to be watching in-game, Matt. If we do see the tight whistle and all of a sudden you've got foul trouble on the NC State team on the inside, I'll probably buy out of some of this bet, take some Purdue in game. If that whistle doesn't appear, I'm going to be continually betting this game on the NC State side, +6, +7, +5, whatever I can get. Because if this game is not officiated as tightly as that Tennessee game, I think it's a big advantage for NC State.
Now, we haven't seen movement yet as far as the actual line. We have started to see the juice tick just a little bit, some pennies here and there, but it still is 11.5 in favor of UConn in this one over Alabama. 161 is the total at DraftKings. You and I have gone different approaches on this. We'll start with you. I'll tell you how I ended up attacking this thing.
Hey, give me the under here, 160.5. I think Bama's going to just chuck up a bunch of threes in this spot, and I'll take the negative variance here for them. I expect them not to make as many shots. I also like the fact that UConn 303rd in the nation in possessions per game. They're very efficient on the offensive side, but they're not very quick. They also defend the three-point line very well. So I'll take the under 160.5 here. It's ticked up to 161, so you can get a little bit better number than I got there as well. Also take Sears over 2.5 three-pointers. He took 14 of them against Clemson. If the Alabama wants to win, Sears has to shoot the 3 ball. I think 2.5 is about a full three-pointer too low. So let's go over 2.5 three-pointers for Sears as well. What do you like, Matt?
Yeah, UConn has been an absolute truck for sure. And it's not like I really want to step in the way of UConn, and I don't think that Alabama is going to win the game, so I'm not going there. By the way, if you do think 5-1, if you think you can get plus 500 over DraftKings, you think Alabama pulls the outright upset, I'm not going to go there. We said this is going to be a game of variance, right? We expect a ton of threes. If they fall, probably closer than the spread. If they don't, it gets absolutely out of control. I think that's the way you handicap this thing. If you like UConn, I'd play alt lines, 12.5, 13.5, 14.5, 15.5. You can run it out to 18, 19.5 too, because this thing could get really, really out of hand if those things aren't falling. I'll play the other side of it, that they will keep it a little bit closer, that some of those threes are going to go down. So I actually took plus 7.5 at a little bit over plus 150 on Alabama. Guys, remember, stick around down at TPC Scottsdale. You can see them right there on your screen. You get a special edition of Follow the Money coming up right now.